The protagonist quietly imagined a future where he got married, had children, and lived a happy life with a peaceful family. That kind of life felt like something common in the countryside, though it was not impossible for him. Still, he understood that having a wife and children was not the only way to find happiness while life continued moving forward. Living alone and enjoying freedom could also be a kind of happiness. In some ways, this was similar to the single viewers watching the video. His name was Oda Gentoku, a 38-year-old man who worked as a repairman in the city. After finishing a job, he announced that everything was fixed. He was more like a handyman, which was how he thought of his own work. That morning, he had visited the home of an elderly couple after receiving an early call for help. Before heading to his regular work, he stopped by to check their problem. It seemed a child had probably played with the valve and shut it off, which caused the water to stop running. As requested, he also replaced the faucet and filter. The old man thanked him and said he was as dependable as always. Gentoku reminded himself that his main work was actually electrical repairs. Soon after, someone called his name and asked if he ever planned to get married, pointing out that he was almost 40 years old. Gentoku could only think about how people in the countryside loved setting others up. Marriage was not something he cared much about. For him, simply getting through each day already felt like enough. He still carried the memory of his father's final wish, which was for him to never marry. Even so, the people around him kept insisting that marriage and children were the true path to happiness. Gentoku quietly questioned that belief, unable to fully agree with it. After thanking them for the work, he prepared to leave. Even when they called for him to wait, he simply started his bike and drove away. After finishing his last job for the day, he relaxed and had a drink. Feeling satisfied, he thought being single was the best choice for him. He had no complaints and enjoyed the freedom of spending his time and money however he wanted. His hobbies kept him busy, such as camping, fishing, and riding his bike. He also earned enough money to stay away from home for weeks without any problem. As he relaxed, he suddenly remembered that tomorrow was his father's death anniversary. This made him think about how difficult his father's life had been. His mother used money carelessly, spending everything as quickly as his father earned it. When his father tried to grow his business, he borrowed money to buy new equipment. As a child, he watched all of this happen. Soon after, his mother ran away with the money, leaving him and his father behind. At first, his father was heartbroken. Thankfully, his grandfather stepped in to help them. He moved into their home, used all of his savings to pay off the debt, and worked alongside his father in construction work. The business had started as an electrical company, but his grandfather slowly turned it into a handyman service. Growing up, he spent a lot of time watching his father and grandfather work. Being around them every day inspired him to follow the same path. Living with his grandfather helped his father recover from his struggles. The three of them spent many weekends fishing and camping together. His father loved motorcycles, and his grandfather also enjoyed riding when he was younger. Together they bought a bike and often worked on it. Sometimes all three of them rode together, creating some of his happiest memories. Those moments were what shaped his love for freedom and simple living. From his father, he learned not to believe that marriage automatically brought happiness. What truly mattered was finding happiness in life itself. He quietly listened as his father reflected on how getting married just to satisfy others or appear dutiful to family was pointless. In the end, his father believed that the most important thing was simply living life the way one truly wanted. Gentoku remembered his father's struggles with marriage and women, but he still admitted that he liked women. Even so, he had no interest in getting married or living a happy family life. Instead, he preferred spending his time riding, camping, and fishing. He also enjoyed reading manga and light novels. Since work had been slowing down, Gentoku started thinking about taking a short trip. He considered booking a stay at a hot spring and relaxing for a few days. He had already decided to stay single, earn money, and spend it however he wanted while living life on his own terms. At his next job, the people at the factory apologized and explained that the shutter had suddenly broken. Gentoku brushed it off and said it was fine, feeling grateful to have work. After checking the problem, he said he could fix it using the parts he had brought with him. The man sounded surprised by how prepared he was. Before starting, Gentoku warned them that there would be a short power outage while he worked, and they quickly agreed. The man confirmed that he had turned off the breaker and even placed a sign to warn others that the power was off for electrical work. However, the sign had not been attached properly and later fell off the wall. As the power went out, Gentoku began working. While fixing the problem, he thought about preparing for his trip once the job was done. He even started thinking about visiting scenic places during his vacation. Then, without warning, a powerful shock hit him in the middle of his work. Pain rushed through his body as the electricity struck him. The force threw him backward, and his body shook from the surge. Gentoku stared at his trembling hand in confusion. He was sure the breaker had already been turned off. However, as the people around him shouted, he realized what had happened. Someone had switched the breaker back on. The electric shock overwhelmed him and brought him down in the middle of the job. At that moment, Gentoku only knew one thing. He had died. A few seconds later, Gentoku realized he was still alive. He opened his eyes and looked at himself in shock, unable to believe he had survived. Even though he still felt the pain, his body seemed completely fine. Then he stopped himself and remembered there was something more important to figure out. He looked around and quickly noticed something was wrong. This was not where he was supposed to be. A sudden thought crossed his mind. Had he died? Just moments ago he had been inside the factory, but now he was standing in what looked like a warehouse district. Confused, he looked around, trying to make sense of the situation. Gentoku started laughing to himself, thinking that maybe he had been transported to another world like the characters in light novels after dying. But he quickly doubted the idea and convinced himself it had to be a dream. His eyes landed on a nearby sign that read Alexandrite Trading Company. He thought the name sounded strange, but another thought soon made him panic. He suddenly realized he could read the sign without any trouble. It was clearly not written in Japanese or English, yet he somehow understood it perfectly. Panic quickly took over. Gentoku kept trying to convince himself this could not be real, refusing to accept what was happening. Without warning, a voice suddenly ordered him not to move. Gentoku immediately froze. Armed men surrounded him and demanded to know who he was. He looked at them in confusion, unsure of what was going on. They looked like knights from the Middle Ages, and it was obvious they were not wearing costumes for a cosplay event. Gentoku still could not fully process the situation, but one thing became clear: he was no longer in Japan. The idea that he might really have been transported to another world slowly started to sink in. The men questioned why he was there and treated him like a suspicious intruder. Gentoku argued back, frustrated because he did not even understand how he had ended up there himself. The guards accused him of breaking in and pleading ignorance. Gentoku stared at them nervously. Suddenly, one of the men rushed at him. Gentoku reacted without thinking and defended himself. In one quick move, he knocked the attacker to the ground. The moment the man slammed to the ground, he realized his grandfather's Aikido instinctively kicked in. Gentoku thought he had made the situation much worse. The men immediately ordered everyone to surround him. Gentoku knew there was no way he could win against all of them. Realizing this, he quickly raised his hands to show he was not a threat. He tried to calm the situation and explain that he had only just regained consciousness there. He asked them to hear him out. At that moment, a young woman stepped in and agreed. The soldiers stayed alert as a young woman walked closer while the man in a top hat beside her warned her not to get too near. She ignored his warning and said it was fine as Gentoku stood surrounded by guards. She looked at him carefully and noticed his strange clothes, black hair, and black eyes. Gentoku stayed still while she studied him. She quickly noticed that he was not from that area, and Gentoku admitted it, though he seemed unsure. The woman introduced herself as Sandrone, the president of the Alexandrite Trading Company, and asked for his name. He introduced himself as Oda Gentoku, then made it simpler by saying they could just call him Gentoku. She found his name unusual, but Gentoku casually said he thought it sounded cool. Gentoku then asked if they were willing to listen to him. Sandrone agreed, saying she would hear him out as long as what he said was interesting. However, she warned that if he wasted her time, he would be sent to jail. Hearing that, Gentoku felt like he had suddenly been thrown into a dangerous and powerful world without any warning. He nervously asked her not to do that while she smiled with curiosity. Sandrone pointed out how strange his situation was. He had managed to get past their security and enter the warehouse, only to be caught by guards outside. To her, a suspicious man like him had become an interesting distraction. She brought out a stick of cigarettes, and her aide slowly brought out something to light it up. When Gentoku heard them mention security mages, everything finally made sense to him. He realized this was truly a fantasy world. However, watching Sandrone's aide trying his best to light up the cigarette, he questioned why they still relied on fire, flint, and steel. He wondered why they did not simply use magic instead. Gentoku then walked toward Sandrone and claimed he wasn't trying to pull anything dangerous. He offered them his lighter. As he flicked the lighter, Sandrone and the others were shocked by the appearance of a small flame. They stared at it in disbelief, wondering what it was and whether it was some kind of magic. However, they doubted that it was magic since they didn't hear any chant nor see a magic circle. Gentoku simply held the flame, confused by their reaction. He could not understand why they found something so normal so strange. Sandrone's aide anxiously asked if it was a magic tool that creates flame. Suddenly, Sandrone grabbed his lighter, catching Gentoku off guard, and was knocked to the ground. The man beside her panicked and tried to stop her. Holding the lighter in her hand, she looked curious and wanted to know what it was. Gentoku told her it was only a lighter. As she stared at the flame, Gentoku realized this was probably one of those situations where modern items looked strange in a fantasy world. She then decided they should continue the conversation somewhere else. Gentoku narrowed his eyes and wondered if that meant he was going to jail. Sandrone smiled and denied it, telling him he was actually getting special treatment instead. She ordered Richter to escort their guest and sent everyone else back to work. The workers immediately obeyed. Before leaving, Gentoku quickly asked for his lighter back. Richter simply told him to come along. Gentoku could not help but think about how quickly things had changed. Just moments ago, everyone treated him like a suspicious stranger, but now he was suddenly an important guest. In this strange new world, his small lighter had unexpectedly saved him. Even so, he had no idea what would happen next. When he entered Sandrone's office, she welcomed him inside. Gentoku asked for his oil lighter back again, but she ignored the request and demanded an explanation. She wanted to know exactly what the item was. Gentoku repeated himself and explained that it was only a tool used to make fire. It was called a lighter. Sandrone studied the lighter closely and noted that there were no magic tools that could create fire, and the lighter did not seem magical at all. Gentoku then asked her how people in this world normally created fire, which only confused her. She claimed he should buy the fire from a fire shop in Okibiya and pressed him further, surprised that he did not seem to know much about it. Gentoku gave a simple answer and admitted he had no idea about what she was talking about. After a short pause, she decided it was better to hear his full story first. She asked why he was there. Gentoku made it clear first that he would not be lying. He explained that he had been working in another world, got electrocuted, blacked out, and then woke up right in front of her warehouse. For the moment, Sandrone accepted his explanation and continued examining the lighter. If he really came from another world, then so be it. Still smiling, she shifted the conversation toward what would happen next. Gentoku broke into a cold sweat as he felt something bad was going to happen to him. He then looked behind him to check if his guts were telling him right. Seeing her aide's nervous expression confirmed that he was right. Sandrone found Gentoku interesting, but what caught her attention more was the smell of money coming from him. She teasingly lifted his chin with her finger. Since he had nowhere to go, she suggested becoming hers. Gentoku immediately refused and said that was not going to happen. He admitted he was flattered, but explained that he had promised himself to stay single and live freely. Sandrone quickly corrected him and said he had misunderstood her. She did not want him, but wanted his knowledge instead. Gentoku looked confused by what she meant. She explained that Gentoku was the only person there who knew things from another world, and she planned to use that knowledge for her own benefit. In exchange, she would offer him food, shelter, and knowledge about their world. After embarrassing himself, Gentoku finally gave in and accepted her offer. She decided to start with something simple, and asked how to use the item and how it could create fire so easily. Gentoku tried to make sense of the question. He asked if fire was really that rare, and repeated what she had said about people buying it, still unsure of the situation. Sandrone then asked Richter to explain, and he quickly agreed. Richter introduced himself as Sandrone's secretary and bodyguard. Gentoku greeted him politely and asked if he could explain more about fire and the country as well. Richter simply agreed. Sandrone said the explanation would take a while, so she decided to leave and get some rest. Gentoku looked surprised by how casually she said it. Before leaving, Sandrone told them she would leave everything to Richter and wished Gentoku a good night. After she left, Gentoku realized she had taken his lighter, which only added to his confusion. He commented how things were on Richter. Richter brushed off the remark and said they should begin. Richter explained that people bought fire tools from Okibiya, shops that handled fire created through magic. In that world, fire was usually made with magic because flint was difficult to use. Every household kept a lamp to receive fire, and people regularly bought it for daily needs. Gentoku pointed out that this was nothing like Japan and said it truly felt like another world. Back home, people never had to worry about getting fire because they had easier ways to handle it. After hearing that, Richter quickly saw the opportunity. He said that if such a system could be mass-produced, their company would be guaranteed success. Gentoku wondered if the people running Okibiya would be upset by that idea. Richter admitted that was possible, but he said Sandrone likely would not care at all. This made Gentoku realize what kind of person she was. Gentoku then asked about their ages. Richter confirmed that his young lady was 21 years old while he was 29. Gentoku thought it was surprising that someone so young could be that bold. After understanding the situation with fire, Gentoku asked Richter to explain more about the country. Richter agreed and explained that they were in the Kingdom of Edelstein, the largest nation on the continent. They were currently in the 13th district, known as the Warehouse Block, where trading companies stored their goods. He further explained that the Alexandrite Company used magical detection fields as security, making it difficult for anyone to enter, even their own magic guards. That was why everyone had been shocked when Gentoku passed straight through those detection fields. Gentoku compared it to magic used for fighting monsters. Richter confirmed that Gentoku understood the basic idea and explained that there were many kinds of magic, including offensive and defensive types, along with monsters existing in the world. The more Gentoku learned, the more convinced he became that this really was a fantasy world. For a moment, he imagined this as his chance to use modern knowledge to become successful, but he decided to stay focused on something first. Gentoku then asked Richter if their world had taxes or income reports, thinking any working adult would naturally wonder about such things. Richter looked confused and asked what an income report was. Gentoku learned that such a system did not exist in this world. Richter did confirm that they had taxes, explaining that people needed to earn money to pay the crown. He added that income was taxed at 10% once a year, though he did not seem to think much of it. Gentoku was stunned when he heard it was only 10% once a year and immediately thought it sounded like paradise. He compared it to his life in Japan, where money always felt tight even though he stayed single. This new world seemed far less financially stressful. As he thought more about it, Gentoku started imagining a peaceful and comfortable life there. The idea of living a slow and easy life in this world suddenly felt very possible. Gentoku wondered if he could live on his own in this place. Richter told him it would probably be difficult. He explained that Gentoku was still new to this world and would not be allowed to leave that easily. Sandrone reminded him from the side to use his knowledge for her benefit, and Gentoku simply accepted it. Feeling slightly motivated, he asked where he should begin. He guessed that the oil lighter might be connected to what he needed to do. He thought about it carefully and decided the idea could still work even if it was not perfect. Satisfied with his plan, he chose to move forward. He then asked Richter about the different ways people created fire in this world because he wanted to understand how it worked. Richter agreed to explain, but before continuing, he noticed it was already late and said they should continue the next day. He also mentioned that a room would be prepared for Gentoku. As Gentoku walked with Richter, he thought about how confused he had been when he first arrived. Back then, he had no idea what to expect, but now the situation did not seem as bad as before. He admitted to himself that surviving alone would likely be difficult. Looking ahead, he started to think that a slow and peaceful life in this place might actually suit him. That night, however, Gentoku struggled to fall asleep. He kept overthinking the moment when he assumed Sandrone was interested in him, only for him to proudly declare that he planned to stay single for life. The next morning, while looking around the warehouse district, Gentoku realized it was busier than he had expected. He couldn't tell the previous night since it was dark. Richter greeted him and asked if he had slept well. Remembering the night before, he said it was fine, though the futon had felt rough and hard. Richter told him they should head to breakfast because the lady was waiting. Gentoku agreed and followed along. As they walked, Gentoku pointed out that the warehouse was much cleaner than he expected. Even the guest room had felt fancy. Richter said he was glad the place met his standards. He explained that the building also worked as their office, while the guest rooms were prepared for visiting clients. He also mentioned that the lady had her own separate home behind the warehouse. Hearing that, Gentoku admitted the place was more luxurious than he expected. As they entered Sandrono's office, she was there sitting while smoking. She casually greeted them. Gentoku then asked if he could get his lighter back. Instead of answering directly, she told him to eat breakfast first, and said they would give him a job afterward. He complained that this was not what he had asked for. Sandrono then asked if he could create a simpler version of the lighter that could be mass-produced. Gentoku replied that it depended on what tools were available. This reminded him of his bag, and he quickly asked if it was still untouched. Thinking about his belongings, he checked his bag and found everything still inside, including his work clothes, phone, wallet, and other items he usually carried. When Sandrono called the items strange, he only told her to laugh it up. He then focused on his phone, wondering if he could figure out the signal. Suddenly, Sandrono's eyes lit up and moved much closer and stared at the phone with great interest, clearly amazed by its design. Surprised by how close she was, Gentoku quickly reacted and told her to keep some distance. She became curious about what the device was. He explained that it was a smartphone from his world, mainly used for communication, listen to music and watch videos, though most features would not work in this new world. Sandrone kept staring at it with fascination and seemed ready to ask for it. Before she could complete her sentence, Gentoku refused right away, saying the phone was too important to him and that she should be satisfied with the lighter. This made her mood turn sour. Before the situation could get worse, a maid arrived and announced that breakfast was ready. Sandrone stayed quiet for a moment, clearly annoyed, before finally agreeing to eat. When Gentoku saw the food, his interest immediately showed. He said the meal looked very satisfying. Richter asked if it suited his taste, and Gentoku admitted that it did. The food felt somewhat familiar to him, which made the meal even better. After finishing breakfast, Gentoku said it was time for a smoke. Sandrone asked if he still had something to light it with. He casually pulled out a cheap lighter and used it, which surprised her. She looked at it with curiosity and asked if what he was smoking was tobacco. He confirmed it and explained that it came from his world. Hearing that, she realized his world also had tobacco. She then explained that her company mainly developed and sold magic tools, but they also produced tobacco. She handed him one of their products and told him to try their brand instead. He accepted it without much reaction. After trying it, he said it tasted sweet. He found the flavor strange but admitted it gave him a pleasant feeling. On the other hand, Sandrone roughly and loudly coughed after she tried Gentoku's. Gentoku asked if she was fine. Still coughing, Sandrone claimed she found the taste disgusting and awful. She then decided that from then on, Gentoku would only smoke their tobacco and made it clear that his own brand was no longer allowed. She explained that their tobacco had medicinal properties that spread through the body and would purify it. She also mentioned that it was her own special blend and was popular among noble ladies. Gentoku questioned this, saying tobacco was usually considered harmful. Sandrone did not understand what he meant. She dismissed his concern and insisted that tobacco was good, telling him not to compare her product to low-quality versions. He decided not to argue further. He had already been planning to quit smoking anyway, but after this experience he realized he might have to get used to the tobacco of this new world. She changed the subject and said she had a business meeting with Richter. Before leaving, she told him to start developing a magic tool that anyone could use to make fire. She also said he could use the workshop however he wanted. As she was about to leave, Gentoku quickly stopped her. He complained that she could not just leave such a big task to him without any help. Since he barely knew anything about this world, he asked for some kind of guide. Sandrone admitted he had a point and called Richter over, asking him to bring someone to help. Richter hesitated for a moment and asked if she really meant that girl. She said it was fine because she would be gone for a few days anyway. Richter still seemed unsure and asked if that was really okay. When Gentoku heard she would be gone for several days, he looked surprised. Richter then told him that a personal support assistant would be assigned to him. He explained that Gentoku could ask her anything he did not understand. Hearing this, Gentoku repeated the idea of having support, sounding confused. Richter then clarified that the person assigned to help him was one of the company's engineers. Gentoku soon went somewhere else. As he looked around, he noticed the place felt more like a research lab than a workshop. There were strange tools and blueprints everywhere, but he decided not to ask questions and simply accepted the situation. A girl suddenly appeared and started confronting him. She accused him of trying to impress her boss. Pointing at him with annoyance, she complained that he was an outsider from another world who somehow managed to impress her lady, which clearly bothered her. Caught off guard, Gentoku tried to figure out who she was. She introduced herself as Yellen, a magic tool engineer for the Alexandrite company, and asked for his name. He introduced himself as Oda Gentoku and said she could just call him Gentoku. Yellen reacted by saying his name sounded strange. She then asked how old he was and questioned whether he could really handle a support role like this. Gentoku responded by saying he should have been the one asking her that question instead. Yellen explained that she was 18 years old and told him not to underestimate her because of her age. She proudly stated that she was a triple attribute prodigy and confidently claimed to be a highly recognized magic engineer. Hearing this, Gentoku repeated the term triple attribute and wondered what being a magic engineer even meant. He listened as Yelena explained things while mentioning that she had been told to treat him like someone who knew nothing. Gentoku simply went along with it. Yellen teased him and acted like she would be teaching him everything from the start. At that moment, Gentoku recalled Richter earlier asking with concern if this arrangement was really a good idea, while Sandrone had confidently approved it. Realizing what Sandrone had truly meant, he quietly cursed her in his mind. Even so, he admitted that he did not know much and said he was relying on Yelan's help. Hearing that, Yelan confidently assured him that he could leave everything to her. After thinking it over, Gentoku realized something and questioned what a magic tool actually was. Hearing that, Yelan looked surprised and realized he truly did not know much about this world. He reacted to her expression and told her to stop looking at him like that. She apologized and admitted that he would not be able to work well without understanding how the world worked. She then said she was counting on him. He answered by saying he was also counting on her. That morning ended with Gentoku being flooded with information as he learned many things from Yelan. He discovered that mana was the basic energy of this world and everyone was born with different amounts of it. Mana also had different types such as water, fire, wind, light, dark, and colorless, making 6 types in total. However, people with elemental mana were rare because most only had colorless mana. Even so, schools taught basic magic to everyone. Because of this, even ordinary people could use simple spells for daily life at home. Hearing this, Gentoku admitted that the world really did feel like a fantasy story. People with elemental affinity were on a completely different level. They could become mages or magic tool engineers. Those who had 3 elemental types could even join the royal court. Yellen proudly explained that she had 3 attributes: water, earth, and wind. Gentoku admitted that this was impressive. He realized this meant she could use many kinds of spells. She explained that she could use a lot of magic mostly for daily life and crafting. However, she made it clear that she was not suited for battle and could not use offensive magic. She then spoke about Sandrone, saying her magic was amazing. She admitted that she joined this field because she admired Sandrone's brilliance. Hearing this, Gentoku was surprised to learn that Yellen respected such a bossy lady. Yellen quickly became defensive when Sandrone. Gentoku immediately backed off and apologized. Yellen told Gentoku that she was going to check his magic affinity and asked him to give her his hand. He looked surprised and asked if she was serious. She pulled out a sheet of paper and showed it to him with a small laugh. Confused, he wondered if it was really just an ordinary sheet of paper. Yellen then explained that it was a magic affinity test created by the Alexandrite company. Still confused, he questioned what she meant. She explained that in the past only mages from the association could test someone's magic affinity. Now all it needed was a single drop of blood to reveal a person's element and total mana. She proudly mentioned that it was one of Sandrone's greatest inventions. Hearing this, Gentoku admitted that it sounded impressive, but he also wondered if it would cause problems for the mages in the association. Yellen confirmed that it had already created issues, and even the higher-ups had complained about it. She added that Sandrone did not care about their complaints at all. Gentoku noted how bold Sandrone was. Yellen continued by explaining that Sandrone had even brought the invention to the royal palace and challenged the head mage of the association to compare which method was more accurate. From that, Gentoku realized Sandrone had completely defeated them. Yellen explained that the Magic Association eventually had no choice but to admit defeat, and now these testing sheets had become essential tools. After hearing all of that, Gentoku thought the whole thing was impressive and considered having a drink with Richter sometime. Yellen then moved on and told him it was time to test him. Gentoku quickly reacted, admitting that he was not good with blood. Yellen brushed aside his concern and explained that there was a tiny needle hidden inside the sheet. She told him to simply press his finger against it and assured him that it would barely hurt. He felt a small sting when he pressed his finger down. Soon after, he noticed the sheet beginning to glow. Yellen watched closely, curious about what element he had. When the result appeared, she looked shocked. She discovered that he had all 6 attributes. Gentoku reacted with confusion while Yellen added that his mana levels were incredibly high. He joked about whether that meant he was highly talented and expected praise from her. Yellen quickly ignored the joke and reminded him that this was not the time for that. Then Yellen noticed something unusual in the results and leaned in for a closer look. Gentoku also noticed it and wondered if there was more to the test. After studying it, Yellen realized there were not 6 lines on the sheet, but 7. Gentoku questioned how that was possible since there should only have been 6. Yellen immediately told him to stay quiet. She explained that there were normally 6 attributes, each represented by a different color. However, the 7th line was different. It was glowing purple. Gentoku stared at the purple result and asked what it meant. Yellen hesitated and admitted that she did not know. She then asked for his hand again so she could examine it more closely. Gentoku agreed and gave her his hand. Yellen explained that she was going to channel her mana into him. She instructed him to hold her hand firmly and close his eyes. She then told him to relax and take things slowly. Finally, she guided him to imagine his mana turning purple. As Gentoku followed her guidance, purple lightning started forming around him. He quickly realized it was lightning magic. When she saw it, she was shocked. She could not believe he was able to turn mana into lightning. Gentoku thought about it and connected it to his past. He wondered if it happened because he had been electrocuted before. He admitted it felt strange, almost like it was connected to his death, but at the same time he thought it was pretty cool. After hearing this, she explained that he did not simply have multiple attributes. Instead, he had awakened a completely new one. She warned him that if others found out, every nation and guild would try to get him. Hearing that, Gentoku quickly stopped using the lightning. He immediately rejected the idea, saying he was not interested in that kind of attention because it did not suit him. She looked confused by his reaction and pointed out that this could lead to a huge promotion. However, Gentoku brushed the idea aside. He explained that he had other things he wanted to do. While he admitted a promotion could be useful since it might give him more freedom, it was not his main goal. She laughed at his answer and thought he was ridiculous. She then admitted she felt embarrassed for bragging earlier about having 3 attributes. With that topic finished, Gentoku said it was time to focus on work. She noticed how motivated he looked, and he agreed. He admitted most people would probably want to go home, but to him, this new world actually felt fun. After thinking about it, he decided that since he could use magic, he should properly learn it. He said his first project would be creating a fire starting tool, but he also needed to understand magic better for future ideas. Because of that, he asked Yellen to teach him. Once they agreed, Gentoku told Yellen he was counting on her as his teacher. She reacted to being called that, then smiled and accepted the role. She promised to teach him everything she knew and he gladly accepted. As he looked around, Gentoku realized that life in this world was not so different after all. Even here, he was still basically a handyman. Only now he was making magic tools instead. Thinking about it made him believe his grandpa would have loved seeing this. After considering everything, he decided he was now a handyman who used magic. The idea sounded fun to him, so he became determined to make it work. With a determined look, Gentoku decided to create something that could change the world. He started by trying to make a simple tool that could easily produce fire. He turned to Yellen and called her teacher, saying he had his first question. Yellen responded by calling him Gentoku-kun, and told him to go ahead. He asked why they could not just use magic to create fire, pointing out that she already had a fire attribute. Yellen dismissed the idea and explained that it was not that simple. Fire attribute users were extremely rare, and among mages, fire was considered the strongest. She added that fire magic was on a completely different level compared to other types. He understood this and thought it made sense. In a fantasy world, he assumed fire users would be common, but he realized they were actually special. She then explained that most people had non-attribute magic and could maybe float light objects or something. She added that most people relied on magic stones and used simple commands to activate them. Gentoku repeated the words magic stones and admitted that it really felt like fantasy. Yellen continued to explain that magic stones came from magical beasts. Adventurers hunted those beasts and sold the stones, and companies like theirs bought them. She continued by saying those stones were used to power magic tools. She finished by explaining that magic stones were the main power source for those tools. He pointed at the kettle and asked if it worked the same way. She confirmed that it did and said it had a processed magic stone inside. Yellen explained that when mana was channeled into it, the magic stone would react. After mana was applied, the kettle responded and started boiling water. She pointed this out as an example of how magic tools worked. She added that the heat came from a command she had written into the stone. She also explained that magic tool engineers not only built tools but also inscribed commands into the magic stones. Gentoku thought about it and said he understood. He realized that magic tool engineers were craftsmen who carved commands into stones and built devices that would use them. He found the idea impressive and decided he wanted to tinker. Yellen then explained that magic stones had purity levels. Higher purity stones were more expensive and could hold more complex commands. Lower quality stones would break easily, and something like a goblin stone could only handle simple tasks like heat this kettle or something. Gentoku realized magic stones were consumables. Yellen confirmed that and claimed that was why adventurers were essential in this world. Gentoku connected everything he had heard so far, and realized there was a simple cycle. Adventurers hunted beasts, merchants bought the stones, and companies turned them into magic tools that were sold. He remembered that the kettle produced heat and asked to see the stone. She agreed, so Gentoku took the stone and examined it. As he looked closely, he noticed a symbol that confused him. He asked Yellen if the symbol meant heat. She was surprised and asked if he could read it, then explained that it was a simple arcane character she carved herself. Gentoku thought it looked just like Japanese kanji from his own world, no matter how much he looked at it. Yellen explained that stones engraved with these characters produced effects based on what the character meant. She pointed at a sheet and said the arcane characters on it were written by Sandrona for a magic affinity test. She added that she could currently write up to 3 characters, while Sandrona could write up to 8. Gentoku was shocked after hearing this because it matched kanji from his world exactly. Yellen continued speaking with pride about being able to write 3 characters. Gentoku then asked if arcane characters were easy to make. Yellen got angry and said that even one working character required a lifetime of testing its effects, and most engineers could not even create 10 in their entire lives. She explained that matching symbols and developing proper characters took many years. Gentoku quickly apologized. He then realized this was actually a good thing because arcane script was the core of magic engineering. To him, it was something he already understood in a way. He also thought it might be even more useful than strong attributes or high mana. Yellen calmed down and said it was fine, and that she would teach him the script over time. Gentoku smiled and thought he could handle the script side, which annoyed her. She warned him again not to underestimate how hard it was to create arcane characters. Thinking it through, Gentoku realized that if the characters created effects, he could treat it like a system and start building tools step by step. He became excited and thought he might even surpass modern manufacturing. He decided to begin planning his next idea right away, thinking the process would be fun. Yellen watched him, still not fully convinced. Gentoku finally decided what to do and started with making a fire starter. She understood and asked if he meant a lighter. He replied that lighters would take time to create, so they should begin with matches instead. He explained that matches were a better version of flint and steel. Flint needed several strikes before it could make a spark, but a match could light with just one swipe. After hearing this, Yellen reacted in shock and said it was very convenient. He added that if it worked, they could produce it in large amounts. She followed his idea and thought it through, realizing that mass-producing fire could change many things. He then thought to himself that it was not just a lighter but a simple tool to start fire. In a world where fire was very important, this alone could lead to revolution. He clenched his fist tight as he swore to make his first job in this world happen. Soon after, Gentoku went out looking weak and exhausted. Richter asked if he was alright, but Gentoku said he was not. He said the matches had been much harder than he expected. He admitted that he had treated the arcane script too lightly. He had carved fire without careful thought and only poured mana into it. This caused a huge burst of fire. He realized he had gone too far. Yellen stood there in shock while Gentoku fell to the ground. He admitted it was his fault and thought he had managed to put the fire out, but he had been knocked down in the process. He explained that carving kanji into magic stones could work, but there was a problem. One method improved control and ignition, while the other caused the stones to break. He realized it would take real skill to turn it into something useful. He then admitted he did not know enough and felt like he had hit a dead end. He also said it was embarrassing and naive to think it would work so easily. He then heard someone call his name. He was told that what he was trying to do could change the world, but it would not be easy. He was advised to take a break and go drink something. Gentoku agreed and thanked him. Later at a tavern, Gentoku tried the food and was surprised by how good it was. He said it reminded him of home but also felt like this world had its own charm. Richter was glad it suited his taste. He was told that the area was a major food district with many good places to eat. He thought bar hopping sounded nice, and the others agreed and said they would recommend some spots. Gentoku said he enjoyed bar hopping and trying different food. He also said he wanted to take on as much work as possible so he could open his own shop. On his days off, he wanted to eat and travel. That had been his life before. He said he wanted the same kind of life in this new world. He then said that if he could perfect the matches, it would be his first step. Even if it was not working yet, he planned to keep trying and improving. Meanwhile, the tavern owner pointed out a crack on the wall and apologized while showing where it had broken. Gentoku kept eating as he listened. When he heard someone mention repairing the wall, he turned and became interested. He looked closely and wondered what material they were using since it did not look like putty or cement. Richter then explained that they were using slime from a magical beast. Gentoku was surprised that something like slime could be used to fix walls. Richter then explained that they did not use it while it was alive. After boiling it, the slime turned sticky, then hardened as it cooled down, making it useful for repairing walls. He also mentioned that it was not very strong, but it was cheap and easy to use, which made it popular. Gentoku realized that even monsters could have useful purposes. Her added that the slime could also be mixed with ink to create color or combined with crushed stone for building materials. Gentoku repeated the words in his mind, especially focusing on crushed stone. He thought carefully about the idea and started to believe crushing might solve his problem. After thanking Richter, he quickly rushed off with a new plan in mind. If his idea worked, they might finally be able to create matches. A few days later in her office, Sandrone looked disgusted as she looked at Gentoku. She did hear that there was a report waiting, so she came. She complained how Gentoku had messy beard and hair and told him to groom himself up. Yellen also commented on how scruffy he looked. Gentoku brushed off their comments and said that was not the important issue. Sandrone reminded him that presentation still mattered and warned him not to get too carried away. She also complained how the oil lighter she got from him was getting hard to light already. Gentoku pointed out the lighter that he was running low on fuel but said it was not a problem because he had made something new. He proudly showed her a brand new fire starter. When she asked what it was, Gentoku introduced it as a magic stone match. He then demonstrated how it worked. He explained that the process was simple. He first carved flame magic into a stone, and even a low-grade stone produced a surprisingly strong result. To reduce the power, he crushed the stones into powder. He then mixed the powder with slime to create the match head. By changing the amount of stone powder, he could control the strength of the fire source. He lit the match to show the result, proving that it worked. Gentoku explained that it was easy to use and could burn for about 20 seconds, which was enough time to start a fire. He also believed that with the right tools, the matches could be produced in large amounts. Since the materials were cheap, the final cost would stay low. Sandrone understood that Gentoku had successfully decoded the flame arcane character, which made it possible to produce fire on a large scale. Yellen said there were still a few problems to solve, but overall the results were good. She praised Gentoku for his work and announced that they would begin mass production and sell the matches through an auction. As a reward, she offered him either a house or money. Instead of accepting those rewards, Gentoku made a different request. He asked them to keep the money and allow him to work there for 1 year. In return, he wanted to learn how business worked in that world. He explained that his goal was to start his own company one day, focused on creating magic tools. Yellen was surprised by his plan and asked if that meant he wanted to become independent. Gentoku explained that he still planned to let their company handle advertising and sales. Yellen questioned how that arrangement would benefit her and suggested that simply hiring him would be a better option. Gentoku thought about it but believed that accepting a normal position would make him feel controlled and limited. Sandrone was caught off guard by his words. His thoughts reminded her of her own past. She remembered her father telling her that women did not need to study business because their role was to marry and support the family. He believed her life belonged to the household and expected her to repay everything that had been invested in raising her. Those memories made Sandrone realize how little freedom she had. Everything in her life had been decided for the sake of her family, leaving no room for her own choices. To her, the house had always felt like a cage. She promised herself that one day she would escape and live freely again. Back in the present, Gentoku explained that he wanted to work hard, enjoy life, and create all kinds of magic tools. More than anything, he wanted the freedom to earn money, spend it as he wished, and live by his own rules. He believed that true freedom was what allowed the best ideas to grow. Yellen agreed with his way of thinking. Gentoku admitted that he owed her a lot, but he still chose to live on his own terms. Even in this new world, he believed he was finally living freely and enjoying life the way he wanted. Sandrone thought about the meaning of freedom. Though still unsure, she agreed and approved the request. Gentoku became excited while Yellen was left shocked. Sandrone explained that the invention looked like a completely new product. She believed Alexandrite's matches would soon spread everywhere within a year. Since fire was something people used every day, the demand would be high, which meant huge profits. She also found the idea exciting, a company led by the mind who came up with this innovation. Sandrone then mentioned it was unfortunate, thinking that if he had chosen her as his reward, she would have devoted herself completely. Yellen was shocked to hear that. Gentoku immediately shot her down. Yellen was surprised by how direct he was and got mad at him. Gentoku explained that he had no intention of getting married. He preferred remaining single and living freely. Sandrone burst out laughing, which totally caught the others off guard. She admitted she felt the same way and had no interest in marriage either. Gentoku simply reacted calmly, while Yellen seemed pleased beside him. Sandrone began to see Gentoku differently and thought they might actually work well together. Gentoku also started to find her interesting, realizing she was more than just a proud queen. She decided they should begin immediately, and promised to teach him about business. Gentoku looked forward to learning from her. Sandrone then threw a dozen of thick books at his way and ordered him to read all of those by the next day since she didn't like students who would skip homework. Gentoku felt overwhelmed as he realized Sandrone was not easy to work with after all. He then focused fully on studying, knowing this was the beginning of his path toward independence. The days passed with non-stop studying and hard work. Gentoku pushed himself through every challenge, believing that if he wanted a life worth living, he had to give it everything he had. A full year passed in constant work and learning. When the time finally came to move forward, Gentoku wondered what he should do next. He revealed that he had designed the company logo based on the sign from his old shop, and the result turned out even better than he expected. In the end, Gentoku successfully founded his own company and decided it was finally time to buy a place of his own. Soon after, a group of shop owners came to complain about the matches. They said selling something like that in the market would ruin their businesses. They accused Sandrone of trying to take away their way of making a living. Gentoku had already expected this reaction, but Richter was caught off guard. A year earlier, the ISEKAI'D company held a meeting to explain the new matches to the fire-sharing shop owners. Just as they expected, the announcement caused a lot of anger and complaints. Sandrone stayed calm during the meeting. She explained that after seeing the matches in use, everyone should understand there was no longer a need to struggle just to make fire. She pointed out that the matches were also easier and more useful for regular customers. Sandrone reminded the shop owners that merchants should focus on what benefits customers the most, even if it meant setting aside personal concerns. Gentoku thought her words sounded cold and harsh. Sandrone then told everyone to calm down and explained that she was not trying to force them out of business. Instead, the matches would be sold through their existing fire-sharing shops. She announced that these shops would now work under her trading company and would focus on services built around the new product. Since matches allowed anyone to create fire easily, she believed the business would succeed and increase their profits. She also declared that all shop signs would be changed to show they were now match specialty shops. This upset the shop owners even more. One man argued that his family's shop sign had been passed down for generations and could not simply be removed. Gentoku immediately realized this was becoming a serious issue. He understood that Sandrone was only looking at the business side and was ignoring how much these shops meant to the people who owned them. For a long time, fire-sharing shops had been an important part of daily life. In a world where fire was difficult to obtain, these shops were valuable and respected. Owning one had become a source of family pride. Gentoku felt it was too harsh to demand such a sudden change. The bald shop owner angrily told Sandrone not to suggest nonsense, putting down the signs they have guarded way before Sandrone herself was born. Suddenly, his son spoke up. The son suggested they could continue running the store as a match shop even if it was no longer a fire-sharing shop. This shocked the father and grabbed his son's collar. The son admitted that his own fire ability was weak and he no longer had enough power to run a proper fire-sharing shop. Upon hearing that, Gentoku just recalled having fire abilities was already rare in the first place. Even if a parent had that ability, their child might not inherit it. Because of this, some families were eventually forced to close their shops. At that moment, Gentoku finally seemed to understand the problem. He then questioned why keeping the shop mattered so much. The son confirmed it does. He explained that he could not bear to end something his family had built over many generations. The shop was a place he loved and had spent years supporting others through. If there was still a way to continue the business in a similar form, even without being a fire-sharing shop, then that was what he truly wanted. Gentoku introduced himself and explained that he had also taken over his family's work. He had grown up watching it, respected it, and decided to continue it. He said he changed some parts of the business, but its main purpose stayed the same. He believed he had kept it on the right path by continuing work that supported people's daily lives just like before. Gentoku then explained that the son likely wanted to continue what his father had truly worked hard to protect. Hearing this, the father finally gave in and what the son wanted to do since he would be the next shopkeeper anyway. The son became emotional after hearing those words. The crowd soon started reacting. They realized that if the capital's oldest shop supported this idea, it was worth considering. Some admitted they were not skilled with fire magic. Others pointed out that matches were small, easy to sell directly, and could even be delivered to customers. They quickly saw how this could help attract more buyers and grow their businesses. The crowd became excited and began saying that their own shops would switch to matches as well. Everyone started talking over each other at once, forcing Gentoku to calm them down and tell them to line up one at a time. On their way back in a carriage, Gentoku commented on how things had almost turned chaotic, but in the end, the situation was settled peacefully. At last, the fire-sharing shops seemed to have found a real solution. Sandrone thanked Gentoku and said his idea had been a huge help. She drooled over the sight of the contracts she got from everyone. Gentoku was impressed by how fast she switched moods. Still, Sandrone explained that their situation was different. As the company's president, she needed to start thinking seriously about ISEKAI'D's future in trading because that was the proper direction for the business. Gentoku admitted he could not argue with that and looked exhausted. Sandrone then called for Richter. He responded formally. She ordered him to arrange a delivery schedule for the royal family. Everyone reacted with surprise after hearing the mention of the royal family. She explained that they would personally deliver both the results and the matches while paying their respects to the Edelstein royal family. She firmly stated that they would secure a deal no matter what. Gentoku and Richter quickly realized that she was fully focused on moving ISEKAI'D to a higher level. After that, matches became a major success, just as Sandrone had planned. They quickly turned into an essential item for everyone, from ordinary households to adventurers. Once the royal family approved them, matches officially became a full business venture for ISEKAI'D. While they worked hard every day, Gentoku studied magic technology and organized his ideas in a notebook. Over the year, he slowly built up money, knowledge, and experience. He believed it was finally time to enjoy a freer life in this new world. A year later, that long-awaited day finally came. He checked if everything had been set up properly and everything was confirmed to be in place. The sign outside made the place feel like a real shop, and he felt satisfied with how it turned out. Soon people arrived to congratulate Gentoku on the grand opening. Among them were Sandrone and Richter. Gentoku was surprised they came all the way just to congratulate him, but they had also brought him a gift. He thanked them for the wine and invited everyone inside instead of standing around outside talking. Gentoku thanked the construction workers for their hard work. As they got inside, the visitors also praised the inside of the shop. Sandrone commented on how it looked great and was already filled with furniture. Gentoku explained that it was a ready-to-go property. The shower, toilet, bedroom, and other parts of the place had all been set. Sandrone then noticed a blueprints on the table and wondered if he was going to start working on something already. Gentoku then shared his next idea, which was to create a coffee maker. Sandrone then assumed it was a purifier for the muddy water, but he quickly corrected her. He claimed coffee in this world was nice and bitter. It was up his alley. Just brew it right and it would shine. Sandrone argued that tea tasted better. Gentoku joked that anyone who could not appreciate good coffee was still a kid. Sandrone then claimed only Gentoku had the right to call her a kid in this world. The conversation then shifted to his new shop. Sandrone asked if owning his own place was what inspired this new invention idea. Gentoku confirmed this and explained that he had actually written the ideas down in his notebook long ago. She asked him to share updates once his prototypes were ready. Since Gentoku's shop was a Magitech workshop, she wondered if he could develop devices for her if she placed an order. Gentoku replied that it depended on his mood. He did not want to become too famous and lose his free time. Still, if he created something fun or useful, he planned to share it. He also mentioned there were still many things he wanted to try building. Sandrone then noticed how cheerful he was and pointed out that Gentoku looked far more motivated than when he was on salary. Gentoku agreed. He said this was exactly the feeling he wanted, since working alone suited him best. After spending a year working with him, Sandrone commented that Seiji had expected him to make a move on her during that time. Gentoku quickly rejected the idea. He made it clear that he had no intention of being tied down and preferred to live and work on his own terms. Sandrone replied that she felt the same and noted that Gentoku never changed his mind once he made a decision. She then wondered if the two of them would still get along even after growing old. Gentoku believed they would remain good partners no matter how much time passed. Satisfied with the visit, Sandrone admitted she were glad she came as it helped her release some stress off before deciding to head outside. Gentoku asked what had been troubling her. Richter explained that although the company's growth was good news, it had also placed a heavy burden on Sandrone. Seeing Gentoku had clearly helped her unwind. Richter added that they would likely need Gentoku's help again soon. Gentoku told him to remind her not to carry everything alone. After they left, Gentoku looked around his new place with satisfaction. He proudly thought of it as his own castle. With his new life finally starting, Gentoku decided it was time to come up with another magic technology gadget, one that might also be useful to those two in the future. Gentoku noticed that this world had 4 seasons, and the yearly temperatures were not very different from Japan, which made life easier for him. However, as summer got closer, a strong craving kept growing inside him. What he really wanted was an ice-cold beer. He remembered the wine he received as gift during his shop's opening and admitted it was high quality, but in hot weather it was not what he truly wanted. After working hard under the heat and sweating heavily, he could only imagine the refreshing feeling of drinking something cold. That thought alone convinced him to make it happen. Since he had plenty of goblin magic stones, he started by carving kanji into them to give them special effects. This process was easy for him, and he considered it his cheat in this world. Once the stones were ready, he moved on to building the box. He tested a design based on a water-cooled fridge but quickly noticed the cooling barely reached the inside. He realized the box needed to be more airtight. After thinking it over, he decided to use slime. He applied it to the edges, then let it cool and harden. This gave him the idea for a gasket, making him realize slime could be useful for many things with the right approach. To him, slime felt similar to using magic script, and from a repairman's point of view, it was incredibly practical. He also tested different magic stones while working on the project. Eventually, the prototype was complete. It was a fridge with an ice maker. The fridge worked even with a low-grade stone carved with the characters for cold air. However, the ice maker part still had problems. The stone could not handle too much mana, so it broke easily. Gentoku figured improving the stone's durability and output would solve the issue, so he decided to ask for help. When he walked in the middle of the town, someone recognized him as the person behind the match Magitech. Gentoku noticed it was the bald old man who owned the oldest fire shop. He asked how things had been since then. The shop owner told him business had been booming. Selling fire had become much easier because they no longer needed to stand guard all day, managing flames. Delivery work had increased, and overall the job had become easier while bringing in better profits. Hearing this made Gentoku happy. Before, they never had free time like this. If the person who could use fire got sick, the entire business would stop. Now the owner had been able to hire workers and even expand the business. He had even traveled to a neighboring country with his family. During the trip, he spent time with his son, ate well, drank too much, passed out, and later got scolded by his wife. Even so, he sincerely thanked Gentoku, saying this new lifestyle had helped their family greatly. Gentoku also learned that other fire-sharing shops were grateful for the changes, which made him feel glad. Then the owner added that many men had recently gotten married. The moment Gentoku heard this, he immediately understood where the conversation was heading. The owner explained that the growing business attracted many women looking for husbands, and soon the topic shifted toward suggesting marriage for him as well. Gentoku quickly stopped the conversation and simply asked them to continue supporting his business. At the Adventurers Guild, someone noticed Gentoku and asked why he was out of breath. Gentoku greeted him casually and asked for stronger magic stones. The man named Hexen assumed it was another errand from Sandrone, but Gentoku explained that things were different now because he was independent and handed his business card. Hexen was surprised. He recalled the Alexandrite trading was one that exploded in growth the past year, and he assumed the pay was good. Gentoku explained that he worked better alone because that was when his best ideas came to him. When asked what he was planning next, he shared his idea of creating a Magitech device that could chill alcohol until it was ice cold. Hexen immediately liked the idea and called it a dream invention. Gentoku noticed the excitement and explained how amazing it would feel to drink something cold and refreshing in hot weather like mountain water on a warm day. He added that a chilled glass would make it even better. Hexen quickly agreed and said he wanted one too. He asked Gentoku to buy him a round of drinks later and asked what grade of stone he wanted. Gentoku claimed he needed anything above wolf. Magic stones were ranked by stars, with each grade depending on the monster they came from. Goblins were the lowest at 1 star, while wolves were 2 stars. The highest grade reached 10 stars, with dragons at the top. Higher grade stones were much more expensive. Hexen confirmed they had 5 stars. Gentoku decided that a mid-tier stone would be enough for his project. Suddenly, someone called out to them. 3 energetic girls walked into the guild. Hexen called out the girl's name from right to left: Io, Rosso, and Blanche. He asked if they were bringing something in. One of them confirmed that they had 20 Delicondors delivered, and they were being butchered as they speak. Hexen claimed Gentoku was lucky since Delicondors were exactly 3 stars. Gentoku reacted with surprise, feeling like he had hit the jackpot. One of the girls, Rosso, asked if he was a Magitech engineer since he was collecting stones. She added that with stones of that quality he could probably create something impressive. Gentoku then shared how he wanted to build a device that could make ice. Rosso was shocked. Despite traveling around the world, none of them had ever heard of such a thing before and wondered if it was really possible. Gentoku admitted that the device was not finished yet, but he was only 1 step away from completing it. The girls then asked if he was a skilled Magitech engineer and wondered if he could build one for them as well if they submitted a request. Gentoku explained that he had only recently opened his shop and was not accepting many requests yet. Curious, they asked where his shop was and said they would visit it soon. Gentoku agreed and gave them a map. After saying goodbye, the girls left while promising to see him again. Watching them leave, Gentoku thought about how much he wanted to see those kids continue doing well. Hexen pointed out the girls were actually S-ranked adventurers and were doing better than an old man like Gentoku. In the end, Gentoku was satisfied that he had gotten the stones he needed. He was now ready to process them and finally complete the fridge. At the same time, Sandrone's eyes suddenly lit while reading the reports. She could smell the scent of a moneymaker from somewhere. Richter asked her young lady what was on her mind. Gentoku soon tested the prototype. He took the ice tray from the ice maker and poured the contents into a bowl. After checking, he confirmed that the cubes had turned into solid ice. With that result, he decided that the project was complete. As a Magitech engineer, Gentoku's work was not limited to simply creating new devices. There were still many tasks left to finish. One of them was writing a prototype specification sheet, which was also a normal step in his previous world. What made this world different was the need to register the magic script used in each invention. For this ice maker, Gentoku had used the cold air magic script. If he did not register it, no one would know that the script belonged to him. Any magic script he created and developed was considered his property. If someone built a Magitech device using a registered magic script without permission, the Merchants Guild would fine and punish them. For merchants, this was a serious offense. It could even lead to losing their right to continue doing business. Gentoku thought a system like this was well organized and fair. After reviewing the application papers for the ice maker's design and magic script, Gentoku grabbed his bag and prepared to leave. He planned to visit the Commercial Guild to submit the documents and have the magic script checked. If everything was approved, the script would be officially registered. Once that was finished, he planned to go straight to the Alexandrite Company to sell both the prototype and its written report. The moment he opened the door, Sandrone and Richter were already outside trying to push it open from the other side. Gentoku looked surprised and asked what was going on and why they were there. Sandrone explained that she had been nearby, so she decided to visit. Gentoku said they had arrived at the perfect time. The two looked confused, but he told them he had something to show. He mentioned that he wanted to prepare tea for guests, but he had not bought any yet. He planned to ask for recommendations on a good shop later. For now, he grabbed a few wooden mugs, filled them with something, and offered the two some water. Sandrone stared at him and suggested that he should just buy tea like a normal person. Gentoku laughed and apologized before placing the mugs in front of them. Each mug was filled with ice. He casually commented on how hot the weather had been lately. Sandrone and Richter froze the moment they saw the mugs. The ice sparkled clearly inside, catching their full attention. Sandrone quickly picked up one mug and looked at it closely. She struggled to speak as she asked if it was really ice. Richter stayed silent, too shocked to react. Gentoku confirmed that it was indeed ice. He felt pleased after seeing how surprised they were. Sandrone asked again, this time much more forcefully, wanting to make sure it was the same ice she was thinking of. Gentoku told her to calm down. Richter panicked and quickly confirmed to his master that it was real. Gentoku had to calm him down as well. Sandrone then rushed toward Gentoku like she had found something valuable. Startled, he fell to the ground and shook in fear, convinced he was about to be attacked. Instead, Sandrone focused on the application document and questioned what had been going through Gentoku's mind to create something like this. Gentoku stood back up and reminded them that summer was approaching. He explained that during hot weather, people naturally wanted cold things. Sandrone agreed. She pointed out that restaurants could use ice for drinks and food, making their menu more appealing during summer. She also noticed that Gentoku had used a 3-star stone. Gentoku explained that he had chosen a budget 3-star stone from Adela Condor. Sandrone understood his reasoning but suggested using a 4-star stone instead if they planned to sell it commercially and wanted it to last longer. Gentoku agreed with her suggestion. He then asked her to leave the final adjustments to Yellen so she could properly balance everything. Sandrone said that even 3-star stones were already expensive. Because of that, a Magitech tool made with a 4-star stone would be too costly to sell easily. Gentoku then suggested turning the item into a rental service instead of selling it directly. He explained that in his previous world, renting was common for expensive products. Instead of buying costly items, customers could simply borrow them by paying a rental fee. He also pointed out that the ice maker would only be useful during the summer. Renting it out only when needed would be more convenient for customers. It also offered many benefits and made the product easier to access since people would not need to pay a large amount up front. Sandrone quickly understood the idea because their Magitech tool was indeed very expensive. Since the price was high, only a few buyers would likely be interested. But with a rental system, many more people could use it. Sandrone then instructed Richter to confirm the script registration first thing the next morning and handle the remaining paperwork. Richter said he understood. Gentoku suggested bringing the prototype as well and pointed to where it had been placed. Sandrone was slightly surprised but accepted the suggestion. She said she would have Yellen lead the engineers in studying the prototype. Summer was approaching soon, so they needed to work hard to turn it into a finished product. Richter then picked up the fridge prototype and confirmed he understood his task. After that, Sandrone turned to Gentoku and told him that the company would pay him for the Magitech idea as well as for creating the rental system. Gentoku asked if it was really alright for him to receive that much payment. Sandrone explained that he would also receive royalties once the prototype officially became a product. Gentoku looked pleased and thanked her. Sandrone smiled as she watched him. She found it hard to believe that he kept coming up with ideas she had never considered before. Later that night, she planned to sleep early, but before leaving, she walked toward him, lightly grabbed his necktie, and pulled him closer. She complained that his ideas had made her too excited to sleep peacefully. She then let go, turned around, and told Richter it was time to leave. After they left, Gentoku remained standing there with a troubled expression. He let out a sigh before dropping to the ground from exhaustion. He felt completely drained, as if the entire encounter had worn him out. The fridge with an ice maker was finally finished, and Gentoku left the final adjustments to Yellen. Once the product reached the market, the royalties would start filling his wallet. After that, Gentoku locked up his shop and prepared to call it a night. He had spent so much time focused on building the machine that, now that it was done, he felt strangely empty. As he stepped outside, a guard carrying a wooden torch noticed him. The guard recognized Gentoku as a Magitech engineer and asked if he had just finished work. Gentoku said he was about to get dinner before heading home. When the guard asked what he wanted to eat, Gentoku admitted he was craving fish but had not found a good place yet. The guard quickly recommended Manok's Tavern on 3rd Street in the dining district. According to him, their grilled salt-cured dried fish was excellent. Just hearing about it made Gentoku hungry. The guard then mentioned Rippard Cafeteria on 4th Street and said their lunch meals were especially worth trying. He kept listing more food spots before suddenly realizing he had been talking too much. Feeling embarrassed, he stopped himself. Gentoku did not mind. In fact, he was surprised by how knowledgeable the guard was and almost asked him for a full food tour. The guard joked that it was too bad he had the night shift, which disappointed Gentoku. While talking, Gentoku noticed how inconvenient it must have been to carry torches every night. The guard explained that light-type Magitech tools were expensive, so torches were still the common choice. At least trendy matches made it much easier to start fires, so the guards could manage. After hearing that, Gentoku turned back toward his shop and asked the guard to wait for a moment. The guard agreed. A short while later, Gentoku returned and handed him a flashlight along with a small portable headlamp. The guard looked confused as Gentoku explained how to use them. He told him to flip the switch and add a little mana. As soon as the guard turned on the flashlight, a bright beam lit up the path ahead. Startled, he quickly spun around and accidentally pointed the light at his own face. Gentoku explained that the items were called a flashlight and a headlamp. They were simple lighting tools made from goblin stones carved with the light symbol placed inside a sturdy case. The guard switched on the headlamp and tested both tools while looking around. It was immediately clear that they were far more convenient than carrying a torch. Gentoku asked him to use them during his patrol that night and share his thoughts later. If they worked well, he planned to release them as official products. The guard hesitated, unsure if it was really okay for him to test them. Gentoku brushed off the concern, saying he had only made the tools on a whim and could not guarantee their quality yet. He treated them as a small thank you gift for the food recommendations before walking away. The guard stood there in amazement as he watched Gentoku leave. In that moment, he was reminded of how impressive magic tech engineers truly were. For Gentoku, the situation was simple. The guards got better tools for their work, and he got a good dinner recommendation. That alone was more than enough for him. The next day, Gentoku went to his store while still feeling sleepy. As he yawned, he wondered what he should do next. Suddenly, Sandrone kicked the door open while looking for him. The force of the door hit Gentoku in the back, making him turn around in annoyance. He was startled by her sudden entrance. When he looked closer, he noticed a guard following behind her. Sandrone shot the guard an irritated look and reminded him not to wander off on his own again, which only confused Gentoku. She then pointed out that Gentoku had made another Magitech tool and handed it out without telling her first. Behind her, the tired guard stood there holding the flashlight and headlamp. Gentoku confirmed that both items were his creations. Sandrone complained that he could not just give away things like that without informing her first. Gentoku was caught off guard by her words. Instead of answering, he gritted his teeth, ignored her, and walked past. He then asked the guard for his honest opinion. The guard hesitated for a moment before happily sharing his thoughts. He explained that the items worked really well. He especially liked how the headlamp's light followed wherever he moved his head. The flashlight was also very useful and it made his patrol much easier. Hearing this made Gentoku feel satisfied. Sandrone tried to interrupt, but Gentoku kept his attention on the guard and asked for more important details. The guard explained that he had used the tools all night, but the stones ran out of power just before dawn. Gentoku was not surprised, since he had expected that from a 1-star stone. He figured using a 2-star stone would solve that issue. He also asked if the brightness had become weaker over time. The guard confirmed that the light stayed steady the whole time. Satisfied with the results, Gentoku decided to make a few improvements. He told the guard that he wanted him to test the upgraded version as well, and he would ask for his feedbacks again. The guard was surprised and asked how much he needed to pay. Gentoku told him it was completely free. In return, all he wanted was more feedback. The guard was pleased with the offer and soon left. Gentoku waved as he watched him go. Sandrone tried to scold him, but Gentoku cut her off and stared directly into her eyes. He told her to listen carefully to what he was about to say. He admitted that he appreciated everything she had taught him about their world and business. She had helped him with work and even gave him a place to stay. He said he truly owed her for those things. However, he made it clear that none of that had anything to do with their current situation. To him, those were separate matters. He was not saying that the matches or the fridge had cleared the debt between them either. Still, as he had told her before, he wanted to remain free. That was why he chose to work independently. This time, he only came up with the light-type Magitech after seeing a guard light the path with a torch. When he got an idea, he sometimes acted on it right away. There were even times when he shared Magitech directly with people without discussing it with her first. He had learned that this was how ideas could grow into real business opportunities. He reminded her that they were supposed to be equals. Because of that, each of them should be free to do things in their own way. Sandrone was surprised and stayed silent for a moment. In the end, she admitted he was right. She realized she had been selfish. Gentoku smiled and thanked her for understanding. He also admitted that he had been a little harsh. Sandrone said it was fine. To her, Gentoku was the only man who could speak to her that way. Most men in her experience only followed her orders like obedient servants desperate for approval. She admitted that she did not want to reveal Gentoku's talent to the public. More than that, she wanted to keep him to herself because he was someone who did not care that she was not a woman and could simply work well with her. Gentoku let out a dry laugh and questioned what she was even talking about. He said she was giving him far too much credit. Sandrone admitted that might be true. She had simply come to realize that having a balanced partnership was actually something valuable. Gentoku felt glad that the usually bossy woman had finally understood his point. After that, Sandrone excused herself and left. Soon after, Richter went to the shop to apologize for his master's behavior and the trouble she caused. He felt guilty because he had only stepped away for a moment and was unable to stop her. Gentoku told him not to worry about it. He had heard that even someone like Sandrone was going through a difficult time and he had already been very understanding about it. Richter then shared that his master had said she might have killed him if Gentoku had not been there. Gentoku was surprised by this and admitted he would believe it if those words truly came from Sandrone. Richter laughed and said that only showed how much his master trusted him. Gentoku chose to see it that way. He then looked at the headlamp and flashlight that the guard had returned. He asked Richter to take the tool blueprints and prototype units back with him. Richter asked if Gentoku also wanted him to handle the magic script verification and registration. Gentoku said he would take care of that himself later since he had time. After they went their separate ways, Gentoku thought about how he could never fully repay what Sandrone had done for him. He had suddenly been thrown into another world, and she had technically saved his life. He had already promised himself that he would protect the peaceful and quiet life he now had. Even so, he still worried about how to repay the large debt and favor he owed her. He hoped Sandrone expected good things from him so they could continue seeing each other as equals. Gentoku soon went to the commercial guild where business matters like shop openings, patents, and magic script registration were handled. The receptionist, Gloria, looked surprised to see him again. Gentoku told her not to be so shocked since it should be normal for Magitech engineers to register new magic scripts. Gloria explained that she had never seen a Magitech engineer submit scripts so quickly before. At this pace, she believed Gentoku's products would soon spread across the entire country. While checking his application, Gloria noticed that Gentoku had finally become independent. He confirmed that it had only happened recently. Gloria then shared that her daughter had also recently started working on her own. When Gentoku asked what her daughter was doing, Gloria explained that she had opened a flower shop, which had been her dream since childhood. Even though it was a small business, she was doing well. Gentoku commented that starting a business alone was never easy, no matter the size, and respected Gloria's daughter for doing so well. Gloria signed the document and handed it back to him. She looked proud as she talked about how hardworking her daughter was. She then pointed out that Gentoku was also hardworking and wondered if he had ever thought about having someone to rely on. She suggested that her daughter was a good person. Gentoku clearly stated that he had no interest in marriage. He also assumed Gloria's daughter was as beautiful as her, so he joked that she could surely find someone better than him. Gloria laughed and teased him for being charming, saying she might have invited him out for a drink if she had not already been married. The two shared a laugh before parting ways. After finishing the magic script registration, Gentoku stepped outside. Right next to the commercial guild was a well-stocked Magitech shop. He reminded himself that creating things was not only about the final product but also about having the right materials and tools. With that in mind, he decided to check the shop out. Inside, the store sold all kinds of Magitech tools, magic stones, and regular household items. Gentoku felt a little overwhelmed by the huge number of Magitech tools on display. Seeing everyday products as well, he realized the place was more like a large home supply store. He figured he might as well buy some soap before heading back. A group of 3 girls suddenly called out to him. The girl in the middle asked if he had finally finished the ice-making machine. Gentoku scratched his chin as he tried to remember who they were. After a moment, he recognized them as the girls from the Adventurers Guild. He told them the ice maker would likely be available on the market soon, which made the girls happy. The girl who looked like a priestess pointed out that they had not properly introduced themselves to Gentoku yet. Their leader realized she had almost forgotten. The priestess apologized for the late introduction and explained that their party was called Red Camellia of Fresh Blood. She introduced herself as Blanche, the White Mage. Their leader was Rosso, the swordsman, while the girl at the back was Ao, the assassin. The 3 greeted Gentoku cheerfully. Their youthful energy caught him off guard, but he quickly returned the greeting. He introduced himself as Gentoku from the Oda Magitech workshop and asked if they were preparing for a trip. Rosso confirmed that they were. She explained that a monster had recently destroyed their camping tent, so they came to buy a new one. She also mentioned that they had defeated the monster afterward and sold its materials and magic stone. Gentoku understood that it was simply a harsh world where only the strong survived. Since they needed a replacement, the girls wanted a better tent this time. However, they complained that most tents were too heavy and troublesome to set up. Gentoku looked over the tents being sold and studied how they were made. He quickly noticed that tents in this world were very simple. They were basically just pieces of cloth placed over metal poles. To most adventurers, this might not have been a big problem, but to Gentoku it was a serious issue for one reason. He loved camping. He enjoyed setting up a tent like it was his own small base in the wild. He liked building a campfire, drinking coffee, sitting quietly while enjoying a beautiful view and simply relaxing. When he stayed overnight, eating good food and drinking under the stars always felt special. He had even tried car camping before, but deep down he was still a tent camper. The problem was that this world had no real camping culture. Tents were only used as simple shelters for sleeping, with no focus on comfort or enjoyment. While Gentoku understood that some people liked the rough and inconvenient side of outdoor living, he had reached his limit. With a serious look, he decided he would make his own tent. His next goal was to create useful camping gear for the field. When Rosso asked what he meant, Gentoku explained that he wanted to make camping more comfortable. He planned to create a lightweight tent that could pop up and be assembled within seconds. The girls were surprised and excited by the idea. Rosso immediately wanted to know how much it would cost. Gentoku could already feel their excitement building, so he told them to calm down since he had not even built one yet. Raso did not seem worried. She was already confident he would make it and kept asking for the price. Gentoku explained that it was still only an idea in his head and he first needed the right materials. As soon as she heard that, Raso became even more excited. She said they could gather whatever materials he needed. She reminded him that they were an S-ranked adventurer party. Gentoku nearly forgot that Hexen had once told him these girls were highly skilled adventurers. The girls moved closer and eagerly offered to hunt, gather, or do anything else he needed. Gentoku quickly told them to slow down. He remembered that hiring S-ranked adventurers usually came with a huge fee and he was not sure if he could afford them. Raso explained that this would only matter if he were hiring them. Since they wanted the new gear for themselves, she instead decided to make a request to Gentoku. Gentoku realized this would count as a proper job request and smiled. He accepted without hesitation since he also wanted a more practical tent for himself. The girls looked pleased after hearing his answer. Until now, Gentoku had mostly handed his ideas over to Alexandrite trading in bulk. These girls would become his first personal clients. Just thinking about it made him eager to get started. Raso excitedly grabbed Gentoku by the hand and suggested going straight to his shop to discuss the materials they needed. The sudden contact caught him off guard and he told her not to rush him. Raso held onto his hand so tightly that his fingers cracked instead of merely twitching. Although unexpected, the first official order in his workshop would now be a tent. With that decided, Gentoku and the girls headed to his shop together. Gentoku and the girls finally arrived at his workshop. Raso asked if the place belonged to his company. Gentoku proudly confirmed that it did and led everyone inside. As they entered, Blanche said the place looked more like a warehouse than a company. Ao expected to see items being sold, but the building was only a simple workshop. She wanted to see different kinds of Magitech machines and tools. Gentoku apologized and explained that sales were handled somewhere else. He walked to his desk and prepared several papers. He said he would start drafting blueprints and told the girls they could wait upstairs if they wanted. Raso asked if they could stay and watch because she had never seen a Magitech engineer work before. Blanche and Ao also showed interest. Gentoku doubted his work would be entertaining to watch. He felt like a teacher leading students on a field trip. Gentoku sat down, picked up his pencil, and began sketching on the blueprint. Raso watched closely and asked if he was drawing a tent. Gentoku explained that it was a development diagram. He first drew the tent's basic structure before adding more features later. Raso thought that was interesting and asked if he imagined the tent unfolded in his mind before drawing it. Gentoku replied that it was more or less like that. The girls admired his skill. They quietly watched him work with bittersweet smiles on their faces. After finishing the drafts, Gentoku explained that he needed a flexible rod-like material that would not snap easily. It also needed to be lightweight. He asked the girls if they knew of any material that matched those conditions. After hearing the requirements, Ao suggested using the bone of a duralumin snake. It was the first time Gentoku had heard of it. The girls explained that the creature was a serpent-like monster with only one long bone and no joints. Yet it could still bend and move freely. Its bone was light and durable, though it was not strong enough for weapons or armor. Gentoku thought about it for a moment. Back on Earth, duralumin was an alloy often used for tent frames and pegs. The similarity felt almost like fate to him. He decided to give it a try and asked the girls to gather the material for him. The girls confidently told him to leave it to them. Soon after, the girls returned looking exhausted and battered, but they still smiled and apologized for arriving late. Seeing them in that condition left Gentoku speechless. Raso assured him they had successfully gathered the first material he needed. Gentoku, still shaken, pointed out the many cuts and scars covering their bodies. Raso said it was normal since they had gone monster hunting. However, she admitted they would not have looked that beaten up if they had only fought duralumin snakes. Ao explained that griffins lived in the same area as the snakes, and it also happened to be breeding season. Because of that, the griffins had become extremely aggressive and difficult to deal with. Raso quickly assured him they were fine because they were S-ranked adventurers. Even so, Gentoku still looked troubled. Raso asked him what was wrong, and he told them they should have warned him that gathering the materials would be that dangerous. The girls brushed it off, saying situations like that happened to them all the time. Gentoku protested that it was only for a tent meant for sleeping outdoors. He argued they could have used cheaper and easier materials even if the quality became worse. Raso immediately disagreed. With a serious expression, she explained that adventurers could never treat a tent as something unimportant. The quality of their camp could decide whether they lived or died. The greatest danger for adventurers was not always powerful monsters, but exhaustion. Blanche explained that fatigue weakened a person's judgment, slowed their reactions, and dulled their senses. When that happened, even weak monsters could become deadly. The same danger existed during gathering quests. One mistake could send someone falling to their death, and many adventurers had already died that way. That was why camps were so important. Adventurers needed proper rest so they could recover, even if only a little. However, carrying a tent was already a heavy burden. Rosso explained that even when they managed to bring one along, there were times they could not set it up properly. Strong winds and harsh weather could easily blow it away. Blanche added that conditions in the field made a huge difference. Ao pointed out that fighting while carrying heavy gear was extremely difficult. Monsters would never wait for adventurers to put their equipment down before attacking. Many adventurers were ambushed before they could even prepare for battle. The girls admitted they had seen too many comrades die that way over the years. They said that was the harsh reality of being an adventurer. Gentoku felt guilty. To him, adventurers were just characters he had seen in games and light novels. In those stories, adventurers easily accepted quests, defeated monsters, and collected rewards. But this was the real world. Adventurers were real people made of flesh and blood. Things did not work as smoothly as they did in stories. He realized he had never truly understood that until now. Rosso finally broke the silence. She admitted that she became excited after hearing him talk about a tent that was light and could be set up in seconds. If they had something like that, adventures would become much safer. They believed many other adventurers would feel the same way. Because of that, they asked him to create a light and portable tent made for adventurers. They promised to do everything they could to help him. Gentoku became stunned by their words. He suddenly slapped both of his cheeks, shocking the girls. They quickly asked if something was wrong. Gentoku explained that he was trying to motivate himself and focus. He admitted that he had underestimated the work of adventurers and thought the tent would only be used for casual camping. He realized he had failed to understand what his clients truly needed. After that, he told them to leave everything to him and accepted the snake bone from the girls. He swore to put his pride as a craftsman into creating something truly useful. He wanted to meet the expectations of adventurers. The girls felt relieved and happy. Gentoku then declared that it was time to begin. He brought out his tools, rolled up his sleeves, and started working on the tent. It was time for Gentoku to start working, but he quickly noticed how closely the girls stayed around him. Rosso said she felt curious about what he was doing. Gentoku said he understood their excitement, but the work was dangerous, so he asked them to stay back a little. The girls slowly stepped away while looking disappointed. Gentoku first grabbed the snake bone to build the tent frame. The bone felt too stiff, so he heated it with fire magic. Flames like those from an industrial burner shot out from the tip of his finger, surprising the girls. They felt impressed after learning that Gentoku had the rare fire attribute. After heating the bone, Gentoku checked if it bent properly. He then asked the girls to move aside because he needed to spread soil on the ground. The girls asked why he needed the soil. Gentoku spread it across the floor and used earth magic to shape it into a tub. The girls became speechless after seeing it happen. Next, Gentoku filled the tub with water using water magic, which shocked the girls even more. He placed the bone into the water and explained that soaking it would make it softer. However, the girls focused on something else instead. They whispered to each other about how he could use 3 different attributes and switch between them so quickly. While waiting for the bone to soften, Gentoku started making the tent cover. He grabbed a bucket of fresh aqua slime and pushed his hands into it. As he worked with the slime, he used lightning magic. This shocked the girls more than everything they had seen before. They became so stunned that their expressions completely changed. Gentoku believed that using electricity would help preserve the material. He dipped the hide of a wild frog into the mixture to tan it. At that moment, he realized how useful magic was for a craftsman like him. With magic, he could replace tools like burners, faucets, and even electrical machines. It almost felt like using industrial equipment. After that, he dried the hide with fire magic. Still, magic could not do everything. Gentoku still needed his own strength to bend the softened bone into shape. Even so, he felt that making things this way was far more comfortable. The girls stayed silent as they watched him work. It did not take long for Gentoku to finish the otherworld version of Earth's pop-up tent. He felt happy because it turned out even better than he expected. After finishing it, he noticed the girls had gone quiet and asked them to take a closer look. Rosso broke into a cold sweat and asked how many magic attributes he had. Blanche and Ao still looked shocked and could not recover from what they had just seen. Gentoku quickly realized he had made a mistake. Rosso said she had just witnessed unbelievable magic and asked what kind of spell he used to defeat the aqua slime. She explained that she had never seen magic like that before. Gentoku started trembling. He knew he had messed up badly. He had gotten too carried away and used the power without thinking. With no other choice, he apologized to the girls and asked them to keep it a secret. The girls looked at each other for a moment. Then Rosso changed the subject and asked him to teach them how to use the tent. Gentoku immediately looked relieved. He began showing them how to fold the tent, stack the frame, fold it down properly, strap it closed, and carry it around. After explaining everything, he asked them to try holding it themselves. Aoi picked up the tent and looked surprised. She waved it around and even lifted it above her head. She asked if it was really a tent because it felt so light and small that she could carry it on her back with ease. Gentoku felt satisfied because the tent matched the size and weight he wanted. Rosso then asked how they were supposed to set it up. Gentoku suggested they go outside. Once there, he told her to unbuckle the strap and throw the folded tent forward. Rosso looked shocked. She stared at him and thought he was trying to fool her. Gentoku admitted he also was not completely sure it would work, but he still asked her to give it a try. Rosso carefully threw the folded tent in front of her. A few seconds later, the tent suddenly popped open on its own. The girls were stunned. Rosso trembled and asked if it was some kind of tent magic. Gentoku happily answered that it was not magic at all. Rosso said she was only shocked because it turned into a full tent instantly. Ao quickly stepped inside to inspect it. She called Rosso over and said the inside felt really comfortable. Rosso immediately followed her inside. Gentoku explained that he had used wild frog hide coated with aqua slime so the tent should resist rain fairly well. Ao said it already sounded like an amazing tent with incredible performance. Even so, Gentoku explained that they would only discover its real problems after using it in actual situations. Because of that, he asked the girls to test the tent several times and report back to him later. Rosso lay inside the tent and said she understood. Blanche smiled as she finally calmed herself and stood beside Gentoku. She teasingly said that he was amazing for using lightning magic that no one else could use. Gentoku became very nervous because his secret had been exposed. He did not expect her to notice it. He quickly asked her to keep it quiet. Blanche told him not to look so scared and gave a small giggle. After that, her expression turned serious. She explained that as a white mage, she often dealt with the dead, including the spirits of adventurers who had lost their lives. They all looked completely exhausted, and she could only assume they had died in harsh expeditions. She thought the tent he made was meant to comfort tired adventurers and believed it was a helpful item. She called him a benefactor to them and promised she would never reveal his magic. She assured him that no one in Crimson Camellia would repay kindness with betrayal. Gentoku finally felt relieved and said that it would help him a lot since it would cause trouble if people found out. After hearing this, Blanche raised her mace and casually said she could handle a purge if any trouble appeared. Worried, Gentoku quickly told her that was not necessary. The other girls then invited Blanche inside the cozy tent. As Gentoku watched them, he was reminded of how important business really was. He realized these girls were not just simple customers. He felt that he had become involved in something bigger than he expected. The girls called out for him to join them, but Gentoku only laughed and said that would not happen. 5 years ago at the academy, a young Sandrone saw a young man and a young woman holding each other in public. The young man said he had found his true love and ended his engagement with Sandrone. Sandrone stood there in silence. It was a humiliating breakup in front of everyone. She no longer had feelings for him, but she still decided to get revenge for every insult. She kicked him in the face and made him bleed. She then said she accepted his decision calmly. In the great nation of Edelstein, only top trading houses were allowed to join the Commercial Guild Federation. Being listed there was the highest honor a trading house could receive. Sandrone's Alexandrite Trading Company was one of those elite houses. Later, there was a meeting at the academy. Sandrone went there feeling angry because of bad memories from the place. Richter followed quietly behind her. While walking through the halls, she complained that the place still felt like it was full of flashy new rich people. She expected another meeting where old and loud officials argued with each other. She also said that once she gained full control, she would remove many of them. Richter told her to keep her voice down, but Sandrone said she was serious and wanted to make the industry work properly. Suddenly, a familiar man approached Sandrone with confidence. He asked if she was also attending the meeting. Sandrone became even more annoyed. Even Richter seemed unsure of what to do. The man walked beside her and said they had been using her company's matches and that his head chef was very happy with them. Sandrone thanked him for the feedback. The man then said his own company, Peridot Trading, was also doing well with its new beauty magitech products. He said their sales had doubled or even tripled compared to the previous year and proudly claimed they were rising fast. Sandrone stayed irritated because of the man. Peridot Trading was a house focused on beauty magitech and was popular among women. The man, Barry and Jasper, ran the house that once belonged to her former fiancé. Because Sandrone's business was doing well recently, Barryan offered a joint venture. Sandrone quickly refused. Barryan then started talking about the past. He said the kick she gave him still felt like proof of her strong feelings for him. He also said she was still acting cold because she wanted his attention. He believed she had worked hard just to make him notice her. Sandrone silently thought that she wanted to kill him. After the meeting, Sandrone showed up at Gentoku's place and told him to go drink with her. Gentoku was cleaning his place when he went to Richter to ask what had happened. Richter explained that there had been a meeting and Sandrone's ex-fiancé had picked a fight there. Gentoku could not believe that someone like Sandrone had ever had a fiancé. Sandrone suddenly appeared behind him with a scary look and corrected him, saying it was her ex-fiancé. She said she would explain everything later and warned him not to get it wrong again. Gentoku turned pale and agreed. After hearing the full story, Gentoku agreed that it was good she had left the idiot. Sandrone proudly said her roundhouse kick had landed perfectly. Gentoku asked if she had really kicked him. She then noticed that her ex-fiancé still thought she had feelings for him. She got so angry that she almost crushed the glass of water in her hand. She said she was done dealing with him and also tired of sitting through a meeting with foolish people. She said she needed a drink or she would explode. Gentoku asked her to calm down and told her he would treat her to drinks later. He also said it was the perfect time because he knew a place they could go. The three of them went to the outskirts of town where food stalls were scattered around. Sandrone felt confused and asked where they were. Gentoku said it was just a food stall area. He then went to a bald man's stall run by Guido, whom he called Gramps. Guido had been reading a newspaper and asked if it was fine to bring a woman there. Gentoku explained that Sandrone was just a co-worker. He told Sandrone and Richter to sit down. Soon after, a bowl of simmered food and a mug of wine were served. Sandrone said they had not ordered yet. Gentoku explained that this was how the place worked, with wine paired with simmered dishes. He said this was exactly what she needed in her current mood. Sandrone was unsure at first, but she tried a bite of a boiled egg. She was surprised by the taste and found it gentle and comforting. She could not believe something so simple tasted that good. Guido laughed and said it was not meant to fill someone up, but to relax a tired body and mind. Gentoku said Guido's stew was the best and that he kept coming back for it. Guido complained that Gentoku came too often. Still, Sandrone felt something click in her mind and said the food was delicious. She then continued drinking her wine. After a few drinks later, Sandrone angrily slammed her mug on the table and started complaining about her delusional ex-fiancé. Guido just laughed. Gentoku asked if she was a lightweight. Richter thought his master had loosened up and drank too much. Sandrone angrily asked who drank her wine. Gentoku said it was her. Sandrone then asked if Gentoku also looked down on her because she was a woman. She said she had been working very hard. She had been kicked out of her home, started again with her savings, and built everything through hard work and suffering. She finally made her business first rate, but people still looked down on her because she was a woman. She also noticed that old merchants looked at her like she was just something to be sold to a man. Her narcissistic ex-fiancé also twisted everything to match his own fantasy. She said she did not build her life just to get attention from men. She called them disgusting. Gentoku noticed she was venting too much. He also felt it was relatable. People often did not understand his situation as a bachelor. Others expected him to work hard to support a future wife, and those opinions left a mark on him. Richter tried to calm his master. He apologized to Gentoku and said he would take her home. Gentoku told him to let Sandrone talk because sometimes people needed to let things out. Sandrone stood up and kept rambling. The other customers laughed and cheered her on. Soon after, Sandrone talked until she fell asleep. Richter apologized again. Gentoku said it was fine and told him to let Sandrone know he would always join her for a drink. As Richter lifted his master onto his shoulder, Gentoku told him that an adventurer friend had asked him to make a tent and asked if they were interested in the design. Richter asked if it was a new tent. Gentoku confirmed it was and said it was easy to carry and could be set up quickly. He called it a pop-up tent. Richter found it interesting. Sandrone suddenly woke up and asked if it was something useful or profitable. Gentoku told her to go back to sleep. Richter then carried her away and said goodbye. Guido commented that Sandrone had it rough. Gentoku apologized for the commotion and thanked him. Guido then assumed Sandrone was Gentoku's special someone and told him to always be there for her. Gentoku made it clear that it was not like that, but he said he would always help whenever needed. He said that was what coworkers were for. The next morning, Gentoku woke up feeling like a normal old man with a bad hangover. After Sandrone and Richter went home, he stayed behind with Guido and drank far too much. The alcohol still had not left his system, and he started thinking that maybe he really was getting old. While walking through town, Gentoku noticed that several nearby stalls had already started using the refrigerator with an ice maker that he had designed. Some shops had even begun selling cold drinks and frozen treats. Curious, he stopped at one stall and bought a fruit ice drink. As he drank it while walking, he felt proud. His inventions had started making daily life easier for people. Still, the idea that his work helped support everyday life on such a large scale felt strange and hard for him to fully accept. Not long after, Gentoku entered the guild, where Hexen quickly noticed how tired and rough he looked. He guessed Gentoku had a hangover, and Gentoku admitted it before asking for a potion. Hexen handed him a potion after receiving a coin. He joked that he never expected healing potions to work on hangovers, and said he had never thought of using them that way. Gentoku replied that they worked surprisingly well. Hexen mentioned that business seemed to be doing great. He had already heard from the Merchants Guild about the ice maker. More and more shops had started installing them. Still, he found it strange that the inventor himself seemed to react so calmly to the success. Gentoku admitted he was happy, but everything still felt distant to him, so the success had not fully sunk in yet. Hexen said that sounded like a luxury problem. Then Hexen brought up another problem. He also wanted one of those refrigerators, but they were still too expensive for him to afford. He said he already wanted to drink cold alcohol. Gentoku then invited him over for drinks. He reminded Hexen about the promise they had made. Once he finished the refrigerator with the ice maker, he would treat Hexen to ice-cold booze. The offer immediately excited Hexen. That night, Gentoku prepared ice and drinks at his home. It had been a long time since he last shared drinks with someone there. To make the evening feel more special, he even prepared an ice bucket for the drinks. Suddenly, someone knocked on the door. Gentoku went to greet Hexen, who had just arrived. He noticed that Hexen brought a lot of things. Holding a basket full of food, Hexen said it was only natural for him to bring something. He was happy that he became friends with a Magitech engineer. Even though Gentoku lived in the rich noble district, Hexen was surprised that the house looked simple. He thought Gentoku would live in a huge mansion since he earned so much money. Gentoku laughed and said many people suggested that at first. However, he never felt comfortable in large homes, so he chose a smaller and more humble place instead. When they entered the dining area, Gentoku asked Hexen to wait for a moment while he went to get the items. In front of the shining mugs of ice-cold beer, Hexen could not stop himself from quietly crying. Gentoku said he was overreacting a little, but Hexen shouted back that he deserved this reward after working so hard for the day. Gentoku understood and decided it was time to start drinking. Hexen stared in amazement at the cold beer sparkling in front of him. It was his first time seeing beer served chilled. Gentoku proudly explained that he had even chilled the mugs. The first time Gentoku drank beer in this world, it had been served at room temperature. The moment he tasted it, he knew something was missing. Hexen carefully took his first sip of the cold beer. His eyes widened in shock. He looked at Gentoku for a moment before quickly drinking the rest of the beer in one go. Gentoku smirked as he watched him. He already wondered what Hexen thought about chilled beer. Hexen slammed the mug onto the table. Foam covered his mustache as he let out a loud and satisfied "Ka!" He shouted about how crisp and refreshing the beer felt going down his throat. Gentoku smiled after hearing that and took his own turn drinking. He let out a satisfied sigh while foam stayed around his mouth. That moment reminded Gentoku why he built the ice-making refrigerator in the first place. He felt proud as a Magitech engineer and enjoyed helping people through his inventions. Still, deep inside, he created Magitech for simple joys like this. Sharing cold drinks with a close friend. He had never forgotten that reason. The two men spent the entire night drinking chilled beer together. Gentoku ended up remembering those feelings all over again. The next day at the guild, the young adventurers could hardly believe the sight before them. Two grown men staring at each other while suffering from terrible hangovers. Hexen asked if Gentoku came for a healing potion. Gentoku confirmed it right away. Even though he never forgot his pride as a Magitech engineer, he also never forgot how painful hangovers could be every single time. The two men opened bottles of healing potion and quickly drank them to cure their hangovers. Soon after, Gentoku returned to his workshop. He felt nervous because he knew the girls were coming back that day. He hoped the tent worked well and worried that something might have gone wrong. A moment later, Raso burst through the main door and loudly called for him. Gentoku quickly asked how the tent was. Raso became even more excited and said the tent was amazing. She spoke in broken sentences while hitting the reception desk from excitement. Blanche pulled Raso back and told her to calm down. She apologized to Gentoku for the noise, but Gentoku said it was fine. He then asked them to honestly tell him what they thought about using the tent. The girls followed him to the reception area, where he served them iced fruit drinks and cookies from a famous shop. Gentoku told them to enjoy themselves since they were his guests. The girls happily thanked him. After that, they sat down to give their feedback while Gentoku wrote notes. He felt relieved after hearing that the tent was both durable and resistant to damage. Rosso said camping had become much easier than before. She said all the trouble they dealt with in the past now felt meaningless. She told him they could never thank him enough. Gentoku replied that hearing those words was the best reward for a maker like him. He then asked if anything had bothered them while using the tent. Blanche mentioned a slight fishy smell. Gentoku realized the smell probably came from the monster materials used to make it, so he decided to create some kind of deodorizer. He asked if there were any other problems. Ao raised her hand and asked if there were more cookies. Gentoku smiled after seeing how happy she looked. He said there were more in the break room and offered to get them for her. Ao said she could get them herself, and Gentoku told her to go ahead. Ao quickly ran to the break room. While searching for the cookies, she noticed some strange items inside. She peeked out of the room and asked Gentoku what they were. Gentoku brought the items out and explained that they were camping tools he had also made. He said the tent had given him many new ideas. Then he asked the girls if they knew about camping. The girls asked what camping was. Gentoku smirked and started explaining. He said camping meant leaving behind the noise of daily life and enjoying nature completely. Surrounded by the smell of plants and trees, he would read books he had been too busy to finish, stare at the sky, and listen to the sound of the river. He also enjoyed fishing a little. At night, under a sky full of stars, he enjoyed a warm meal and cold drinks. He believed camping gave both the body and mind true peace and healing. Rosso apologized before speaking, but she pointed out that everything he described sounded like a normal day for adventurers like them. Gentoku admitted she had a fair point. Blanche added that spending their free days relaxing in town felt more healing to them instead. At that moment, Gentoku realized they all lived very different kinds of lives. Ao still found Gentoku's style of camping interesting, and she wanted to learn more about it. She became curious about the camping gear he used and asked what it included. Gentoku explained that he had a cooker set that included a pot, a pan, and a kettle all packed into one set. It was basically a portable cooking kit. Rosso and Blanche were amazed by it. He also explained that he had used the leftover Duralumin snake bones to make a folding chair that could easily fit inside a bag. Ao was surprised that such a small chair could be carried around so easily. Gentoku continued explaining that he also had a folding table, a fire pit stand, and even a portable magic stove. The item he felt most proud of was a telescoping fishing rod with a spinning reel. Ao immediately became interested in the fishing rod and looked shocked by it. Gentoku admitted that making it had been difficult. Even though he understood how it worked, creating it had taken a lot of effort. A moment later, Gentoku noticed the other girls had suddenly gone quiet and asked what was wrong. Blanche then asked him to name a price for the gear. Rosso quickly added that they were willing to pay whatever amount he wanted. She excitedly said she wanted all of it because the equipment would be extremely useful during adventures. Gentoku made it clear that he had never planned to sell the camping gear since he had made it for his own hobbies. Hearing that, Rosso dropped to the floor and started flailing around in frustration. She loudly insisted that she wanted the gear and had to get it somehow. Gentoku told her to stop throwing a tantrum inside his shop. Still, he admitted he could simply give the items to them instead. He had made all the gear himself, but he never really got the chance to use it because monsters made camping too dangerous. He also did not know many safe camping spots. Because of that, he preferred giving the equipment to people who could actually make good use of it. Blanche then suggested that he go camping with them. She believed he truly wanted to enjoy the outdoors, so she offered to act as his guard during the trip. She explained that they knew many safe places for camping, including deep forests and beautiful riversides. She confidently reminded him that they were S-ranked adventurers. Even if monsters appeared, they could guarantee his safety and peace of mind. Gentoku looked happy after hearing that. He admitted there were no people more reliable than them. Blanche then asked if they could receive the camping gear as payment instead. Gentoku asked if they were really satisfied with that arrangement. The girls quickly agreed and even asked him to teach them how to use all the equipment. Hearing those words made Gentoku very happy. Since he came to this world, he rarely left the city and only went to places that were safe. As someone who loved camping, it felt a bit cramped for him. He smiled and asked the girls to include him. The girls were glad that he agreed and started talking about where they would go. After the girls left, Richter came to visit the shop. He stopped when he saw the girls walking past him. Gentoku noticed him and said he had just finished dealing with the tent matters. Richter could not believe what he saw. The swordswoman who had just passed him was Red Rosso, one of the 7 Rainbow Adventurers. He did not expect Gentoku to know her. Gentoku asked what he meant by the 7 Rainbow Adventurers and Red Rosso. Richter explained that the 7 Rainbow Adventurers were the 7 strongest adventurers at the top of their world. Rosso was one of them. Gentoku was shocked after hearing this. He realized he needed to improve his camping gear even more. Soon after, the long-awaited camping day finally arrived. Gentoku waited outside his shop while carrying a camping backpack. The girls soon arrived, but Gentoku became shocked when he saw a huge fluffy dog following behind them. He greeted everyone good morning. Rosso commented that the weather was nice, and Gentoku said it was the perfect day for camping. He then asked about the dog. Blanche introduced Hikaroku, an autumn paddy dog that carried their party's cargo. It was Gentoku's first time hearing about that breed. Blanche explained that Hikaroku helped carry supplies during quests that needed a lot of equipment. Gentoku looked excited after hearing that. Ao added that it was also the dog's daily walk time. Gentoku greeted the huge dog and Hikaroku barked back at him. Gentoku became surprised that the dog responded so well. Ao proudly explained that Hikaroku was both smart and strong. With the nice weather and a dog joining them, Gentoku thought the trip would be relaxing. However, several hours later, Gentoku found himself covered in sweat and struggling to breathe. The girls asked if he was okay. Gentoku complained that they had already been walking for 6 hours and wondered why none of them looked tired at all. The girls, including Hikaroku, looked confused by his question. Gentoku quickly took back his complaint and joked that he finally realized he was getting old. Blanche told him they had already arrived, so everything was fine. Gentoku then looked at the scene in front of him. A calm lake rested nearby with a fire ring already built beside it. The air felt fresh, the lake looked clean, and the whole place felt peaceful. Rosso asked if he liked the view. She explained that it was also their bathing spot. Gentoku's eyes widened with excitement as he said the place was perfect. He and the girls then started setting up the campsite. Even Hikaroku dug out a spot to rest in. The girls also gathered firewood nearby. Soon after, the campsite was complete. The tent, chairs, and other camping gear had all been set up. Rosso commented that it looked completely different from their usual camping trips. Gentoku looked proud after hearing that. Blanche realized how useful the camping gear was. Gentoku explained that camping was supposed to be fun and easy. That was the reason he made those items. Just as Gentoku was about to suggest taking a break, Ao called out to him. She wore only a crop top and panties as she asked if he had brought his fishing rod. Gentoku said he had, but when he noticed the simple fishing rod in her hands, he realized she wanted to fish too. Ao explained that she always fished in the lake whenever they visited. Gentoku understood and invited the girls to join them. Blanche told them to go ahead because she and Rosso would stay behind to watch their things. Gentoku and Ao walked to the side of the lake. When he looked into the water, he noticed how full it was with fish. Ao proudly said it was her secret fishing spot. Gentoku watched her prepare her fishing rod before asking if she was using dough bait. Ao seemed happy that he noticed. She explained that it was her homemade bait called Megabyte Orb. Gentoku did not expect her to take fishing so seriously. Ao continued explaining that she changed her bait depending on the fish she wanted to catch. Sometimes she used worms or flour, and other times she even used monster innards. Gentoku realized she was very dedicated to fishing. He admitted that he had only brought lures with him. Ao said she would share her bait because anyone who loved fishing was her friend. Gentoku thanked her and called her a lifesaver. Gentoku then cast his fishing rod and the line flew far across the lake. Ao looked surprised because her own rod could not cast that far. Gentoku explained that the fishing line was stored inside the reel. He also showed her how turning the handle reeled the line back in. Ao thought it was very cool. Seeing how interested she was, Gentoku decided to give her the fishing rod he was using after they finished. He explained that he was already working on another prototype. Ao asked if he was really sure about giving it away. Gentoku said fishing fans should help each other. Ao felt happy hearing that and decided to share the secret recipe for her bait with him. Gentoku gladly accepted the offer. Just then, his fishing line got a bite. He tried to reel it in, but the fish was far heavier than he expected. The strong pull shocked him and his old legs started trembling. Even so, he refused to give up and continued reeling it in with all his strength. A huge fish with black scales and horns suddenly jumped out of the water. Gentoku immediately realized it was a monster. Before he could react, Ao kicked the monster fish and knocked it unconscious. Gentoku was left speechless. Ao explained that it was more monster than fish, which made it especially tasty. She wanted to cook it for their meal that day. At that moment, Gentoku almost forgot he was in a fantasy world. Soon after, Rosso and Blanche welcomed them back. They were shocked when they saw the koibasara, the monster fish Gentoku had caught. Ao proudly told them that the old man had caught it himself. Rosso became excited after hearing it would be dinner. Gentoku asked if it really tasted that good, and Rosso said it was amazing when grilled with salt. Gentoku rolled up his sleeves and started preparing the fish. Ao quickly agreed while Blanche offered to help. It was Gentoku's first camping trip in another world, and he never expected to catch a monster fish. As the girls helped prepare the meal, Gentoku felt that moments like this were part of the charm of camping. Gentoku went into chef mode and cooked the monster fish into several dishes. He made 2 grilled dishes and 1 soup. He also prepared some bread on the side. The girls had already changed into their pajamas and each chose what they wanted to eat. Rosso picked the spicy grilled fish. Ao wanted the butter grilled fish. Blanche chose the soup. Gentoku wondered if they had not brought their own food. Rosso said they did, but she pointed out how amazing his cooking smelled. She felt sure they could finish all of it. Gentoku said that was not the point. Ao proudly said she helped catch the fish, so she deserved to eat his cooking. Blanche simply wanted to try dishes she had never seen before. In the end, Gentoku had no choice but to share the food with them. The girls took their first bites and were shocked by how good everything tasted. Rosso said this kind of food did not belong at a campsite and felt more like something served in town. Gentoku felt happy that they enjoyed it. Blanche then realized how useful camping gear could be. She asked if he could teach her how to make the soup. Gentoku explained that it was called shiojiru. Once she learned the basics, she could change it in many ways, such as making the broth clearer. Gentoku felt relieved that things turned out well. He had prepared himself for the monster fish to taste strange, but its rich flavor reminded him of sea bream. Thinking about sea bream made him crave rice. The food in this world was not bad, but Gentoku still had not found any rice at all. While they enjoyed their dinner, Hikaroku woke up and called out to them. When Ao saw him awake, she told the others to wait while she prepared his food. She carried over a huge tin bowl and a sack of feed. Gentoku watched curiously, wondering what kind of food such a huge dog ate. As Ao poured the feed into the bowl, Gentoku suddenly froze in shock. He quickly rushed over and asked if he could take a closer look. He grabbed a handful of the grains and trembled as he realized what they were. It was the rice he had been searching for. His loud reaction surprised the girls who were eating nearby. Raso complained about how noisy he was, while Ao asked what was wrong with the Zatsumai. She explained that it was a type of grain usually used as livestock feed. More specifically, it was Hikaroku's regular food. Gentoku could not believe that rice was treated as animal feed in this world. Still, that was not what mattered most to him. He noticed the grains had already been properly hulled. To him, it looked similar to brown rice. Excited, Gentoku asked where he could buy Zatsumai. Blanche told him it was sold in almost every general store. Raso wondered if he planned to raise animals with it. Gentoku happily replied that he planned to eat it himself. Blanche looked worried and asked if he was struggling that badly. Raso even offered to lend him money. Gentoku quickly denied it and said that was not the reason. Before going to bed, he soaked some of the Zatsumai in a container of water. Raso nervously asked if he truly planned to eat it. Gentoku firmly answered that he would. He still could not be completely sure, but he hoped it was really rice. The next morning, Ao woke up to the smell of food being cooked. It smelled nice, so she got up, rubbed her eyes, and looked outside the tent. She saw Blanche greeting her with a sour face and dark liquid at the corner of her mouth. Ao asked what happened. Blanche said Gentoku had given her coffee and it tasted very bitter. Ao told her not to drink it then. Blanche took another sip and said she had already thought about that. Still, she felt wide awake and full of energy after drinking it. She looked like she had too much caffeine. Ao began to wonder if the coffee was even safe. Gentoku noticed Ao was awake and pointed out how early it was. Ao asked him the same thing. He said he could not sleep because he was too excited. Ao asked what he was excited about. Gentoku opened the container he was holding and showed cooked rice. Ao was confused and asked if it was the same Zatsumai she knew. Gentoku said it was and that he was glad it cooked properly. He nervously scooped a spoonful and prepared to taste it. Blanche worried and said she could use recovery magic right away if needed. Gentoku took a bite. His eyes widened as memories came back to him of eating rice made by his grandfather and sharing meals with his father. He started to tear up a little. He realized it really was rice. Ao asked if it tasted that good. Gentoku said it did. More importantly, it tasted like something he had known his whole life. It felt special to him. Seeing how happy he was, Ao asked if she could try some. Gentoku told her to go ahead. Blanche, still worried but curious, also asked for some. With more people interested, Gentoku decided to make rice balls. Raso woke up and asked what they were eating. She also wanted to try some. It did not take long for Gentoku to finish making the rice balls. The girls took a bite and were surprised. They did not expect the Zatsumai to taste good. They also noticed there was koi basura meat inside. Gentoku wondered if finding something he had been missing could really bring him this kind of happiness. He became curious about what else he might discover in the future. Their cheerful noise woke Hikaroku. He looked over and saw them happily eating the rice balls. He was confused and could not believe humans were eating his food. He thought humans were truly hard to understand. Soon after, Gentoku and the girls returned home. He thought the camping trip had been a great experience. Ao was amazed by how useful the camping gear had been because it made everything easier and more enjoyable. Raso suggested going on another trip someday. While Hikaroku happily licked him, Gentoku agreed. He told the girls to come back in a few days because he planned to make an improved version of the camping gear. Blanche thanked him for the offer. After saying goodbye to the girls, Gentoku walked back to his workshop. He felt excited as he thought about creating new equipment. But as soon as he arrived, he saw two people waiting outside his shop. One of them was Richter, who looked extremely worried. The other was Sandrone, whose face was filled with anger as if she were ready to explode at any moment. Gentoku quickly learned why they had come. Sandrone had challenged her former fiancé, Baryon, to a showdown. The loser would have to let their company become a subsidiary of the winner's business. Sandrone confirmed that was true, and explained that she had come because she needed Gentoku's help. She wanted him to create a magic tool that would give her an advantage. Gentoku was stunned. He could not understand what she meant and wondered how the situation had become so serious. Instead of explaining it herself, Sandrone ordered Richter to tell the story. The assistant then began talking about what had happened at the office a few days earlier, when Baryon suddenly appeared. Baryon barged into Sandrone's office and praised the sales of the ice maker. He assumed her business was finally doing well. As a reward for her hard work, he arrogantly announced that he would take the Alexandrite company under his own Peridot company as a subsidiary. Sandrone was already annoyed the moment he appeared. Hearing his words only made her even more irritated, but she stayed quiet and listened. Baryon smugly remarked that Sandrone had finally grown her business to almost the same level as his. He reminded her that her family had abandoned her and that she once had nowhere to go. Because of that, he claimed there was no better offer than his. He then told her to stop pretending to be a merchant and become his first wife instead. According to him, it was finally time for her to learn how to be a woman. That was the last straw. Sandrone slammed her fist onto the table and cursed at him. She stood up and demanded to know how many more insults he planned to throw at her before he was satisfied. She declared that she was done putting up with him. Pointing straight at him, she swore that she would crush him. That was how Gentoku learned about her plan. The Alexandrite company would challenge the Peridot company's main business, beauty magic tools. Both companies would release new products at the same time and compete to see who sold more. Sandrone confirmed that this was exactly what she intended to do. Gentoku asked if she was really sure about challenging Baryon in the field where he was strongest. Sandrone answered that the victory would only matter if she defeated him at what he did best. She asked Gentoku to create a beauty magic tool powerful enough to completely defeat that self-obsessed jerk. Gentoku sighed and coldly asked if she had lost her mind. Sandrone froze. She had never expected him to say something like that. Gentoku could not believe she had let her anger control her so much that she was willing to risk her entire company over a personal grudge. He asked her if she had thought about what would happen to her employees if she lost. What about her customers? Had she considered any of them? He then asked if this was really how she wanted to treat the Alexandrite company. Sandrone broke into a cold sweat. She opened her mouth but couldn't find the right words to say. Gentoku's expression turned serious. He reminded her of how hard she had worked to build the company from nothing and help it grow. But he also reminded her that the company was no longer hers alone. Many people depended on it now. He told her to think about everyone who worked for her. As the boss, she carried their hopes and livelihoods on her shoulders. She could not afford to act recklessly when so many people were counting on her. Sandrone could not argue with him. She stayed silent, cold sweat running down her face as she quietly lowered her head. After a short silence, Gentoku stood up and started thinking about making the beauty products. He was not confident about it since he was already an old man. Sandrone looked confused and asked if he was really going to help. Gentoku let out a sigh. Sandrone had already spoken about it, so there was no backing out now. He had no choice but to join in. Sandrone admitted that it was her own mistake. Gentoku agreed, but he remembered how reckless he had been at her age. He believed that nobody went through life without making mistakes. He remembered how many people had helped him and cleaned up after his failures. That was why he had become the person he was today. Now he felt it was his turn as an old man to support the younger generation. He believed that was how people grew. As long as Sandrone still had people willing to catch her when she fell, she would keep moving forward and become stronger. She was still young after all. Sandrone quietly lowered her head and apologized. She also thanked him. Gentoku then asked how they planned to prepare for the contest. Sandrone explained that she wanted to visit beauty salons and learn about the latest trends. She believed those places were full of conversations about beauty and fashion. Richter apologized in advance and reminded her that many young women knew her as the girl whose engagement had been broken off. Beauty salons would likely be the place where people talked about it the most. Sandrone said it did not matter. She had already gotten used to the stares and whispers. That would not stop her from going. Gentoku smiled when he saw how determined she was. He then said that he would visit Peridot's shop and see what kinds of products they were selling. His words surprised both Sandrone and Richter. Sandrone asked if he would really be all right. Gentoku said he was just an ordinary old man, which made him perfect for a little investigation. Sandrone agreed, but she still looked worried. They could clean him up a little, but even then she was not sure. Gentoku could not believe they were talking badly about him right in front of him. Still, he had to admit that he would probably look out of place. It was a fancy beauty shop after all. Suddenly an idea came to him. He asked if he could borrow Yalan. Richter looked confused. Soon after, a carriage stopped in front of the beauty shop. Inside, Yalan wore a dress and complained that Gentoku had dragged her out without any warning just to bring her to a Peridot shop. The dress made her look softer and more innocent than her usual tough appearance. Gentoku said the dress looked good on her. Yalan admitted that he looked pretty good as well. He wore glasses, fixed his hair, and shaved his beard. He said he had to look the part since they were supposed to be on a date. Yalan was shocked when she heard that. Gentoku quickly explained that it was only a cover. They would pretend to be a couple while they searched the area for information. He said there was no chance they would become a real couple, which made them perfect for the role. Yalan thought that was fair. Still, if she was going to wear a dress and go through all this effort, she would rather spend her time on a real date with her boss. There was no way she would ever go out with Gentoku for real. Gentoku apologized and told her she could do that whenever she wanted. The carriage driver then opened the door for them. Gentoku lowered his voice as he held Yalan's hand and asked if she was ready. Yalan nodded in agreement. With that, the two began their spy mission inside the enemy stronghold. Before they went inside, Gentoku asked Yalan if she was ready. Yalan wondered what they were actually going to do. She knew they were on a spy mission, but Gentoku had not explained the plan. Gentoku did not know how to answer. Yalan complained that he had talked confidently about sneaking into the enemy's base even though he had no plan at all. Gentoku insisted that was not true. He explained that they could only find a way to win after learning more about their enemy. In a trade war, the easiest way to gather information was to act like a customer. He believed it was better to stay natural than to think too much about every step. Yelan understood his reasoning, but she still felt annoyed. Gentoku looked around and noticed that most people came in pairs. The men escorted the women as they walked through the entrance. He held out his right arm to Yelan. Yelan looked confused and wondered what he meant. Gentoku asked her to link arms with him. Yelan questioned why she would do something like that with him. Gentoku told her to look around. He explained that it was normal for a man to offer his arm in places like this. He also claimed that men who failed to show consideration were often looked down on. According to him, he knew plenty about these things. Yelan could not help but wonder what kind of life Gentoku had lived. The two of them then entered the store. Everything inside looked elegant and expensive. Gentoku stayed calm and composed. Yelan was amazed by Peridot's products. As the biggest name in the beauty industry, the company had filled the store with all kinds of attractive items. She felt excited to look at the magic tools. Gentoku stopped her before she wandered off. He pointed out that they would end up spending the whole day there if she kept exploring without a plan. Yelan then wondered what they should focus on. From what Sandrone had told him, Gentoku knew that the store's most popular products were its cosmetics. Yelan remembered the sunscreen sold last summer. Every woman who wanted fair skin had rushed to buy it. That was also when Peridot began focusing heavily on beauty products. Since then, people had said that no other company could compete with them. Gentoku could see that Baryon had put a lot of effort into growing the business. Cosmetics and beauty magic tools were now their main products. Because of that, he decided they should pay close attention to those flagship items first. Gentoku walked into a cosmetics shop with Yelan holding onto his arm. He asked a clerk if they could see some cosmetics for his partner. He said they were interested in basic products and wanted to learn more about them. The clerk explained that washing the face with plain water was the usual first step. After that, women normally applied a light layer of white powder, shaped their eyebrows, and put on lipstick. Gentoku thought that choosing the right powder was probably the most important part. While the clerk applied makeup to Yelan, she agreed with him. She explained that the powder should match a person's skin tone. According to her, making the skin look fair was the secret to beauty. After hearing that, Gentoku remembered the sunscreen cream released the previous summer. He wondered if a new product was planned for the coming summer. For a brief moment, the clerk's expression darkened before she smiled again. She calmly replied that it was a secret. Gentoku understood and decided to look around at other shops. As they walked away, Yelan asked if he had figured something out. Gentoku said the clerk calling it a secret was suspicious. He thought it would have been normal to say whether the product was coming out or not. Instead, it seemed the employees had been told to stay quiet. He guessed news about his match with Sandrone might have already spread. Still, he decided not to think about it any longer. After that, Yelan tried different kinds of makeup and even received a facial treatment. Gentoku laughed at her reactions, so she got back at him by making him try a bust enhancement accessory. By the end of the day, Yelan looked completely exhausted. Gentoku wondered if she had lost weight. She was not thinner at all. She was simply worn out. She felt it was unfair that she had done all the work while Gentoku only watched. Gentoku thought it could not be helped since all the products they tried were meant for women. Someone then mentioned that a man who did not know how to treat women properly was inside the shop. It was Baryon. He told Gentoku that women should always be treated with care. The customers around them looked completely charmed by Baryon's appearance. It was Gentoku's first time meeting him in person. Gentoku explained that he was only there to take his partner home so she could rest. Baryon nodded and asked if they had already gathered enough information about their enemy. He clearly knew who Gentoku was. He was Sandrone's exclusive magic tool engineer. Gentoku was surprised. Baryon assumed they had come to look for clues about the upcoming match. Gentoku did not expect Baryon to see through him so easily. At that moment, the noble ladies nearby started whispering among themselves. They felt sorry for Baryon because his former fiancée still refused to leave him alone. Gentoku and Yelan could not believe what they were hearing. The ladies continued gossiping. They claimed that Sandrone still had feelings for Baryon. They even called her idea of using a duel to get his attention crude and shameless. Yelan wanted to speak up, but Gentoku suddenly asked why everyone believed such a story. After all, Sandrone was the one who had ended their engagement back at the academy. Yelan explained that the story had been spread as a tale of true love. According to the rumor, Baryon had found his real love. To be with her, he chose to become the villain and broke off his engagement with Sandrone. In the end, he supposedly found his happy ending. Yelan thought the whole story was ridiculous. She believed Baryon had used his family's influence and turned the truth into a romantic tale for everyone to admire. At last, Gentoku understood what had really happened. Baryon had spread the story of the broken engagement as if it were some entertaining legend. He painted himself as the hero so people would support him. Gentoku felt sick. He could not stop himself from glaring at the arrogant man. He walked up to Baryon and admitted that his shop was impressive. It offered a wide variety of products and perfectly matched the tastes of its customers. However, Gentoku declared that the products the Alexandrite company was about to release were far better. Baryon noticed that Gentoku spoke with the same confidence as Sandrone. He found it amusing and thought their pride would be easy to crush. Still, he accepted Gentoku's challenge. Gentoku turned around and walked away. He said he looked forward to the day they would finally settle everything. Yelan followed him back to the carriage with worry on her face. She asked if he really had a plan after making such a bold statement. Gentoku admitted that he had none. He said he would think of something later. Yelan called him reckless, but Gentoku disagreed. He planned to keep thinking until he found an answer. To be honest, Gentoku did not care about Sandrone's broken engagement or her troubles with love. That was a matter between her and Baryon. Still, there was one thing he could never accept. Back on Earth, people often gossiped about his parents' separation. They said his mother left because his father cared more about work than his family. One day, Gentoku was out with his father and grandfather when the topic came up. His grandfather told them to ignore the rumors. He believed Gentoku's mother was spreading whatever stories she wanted. Gentoku's father simply said he already knew about the gossip, but Gentoku could not stay calm. He hated people who tried to excuse betrayal more than anything else. Because of that, his feelings about the situation changed. He told Yelan that he wanted to help Sandrone. This was no longer just her fight. He now had his own reason to win. Yelan said she felt the same way. She had joined the industry because she admired Sandrone's talent. As for Gentoku, she had come to admire his skills as a craftsman. She wanted Baryon to pay for looking down on both of them. That settled it. The Alexandrite company was going to give everything it had in this battle. Soon after, Sandrone discovered something that left her confused. She wondered what was going on. Gentoku and Yelan were busy inside the workshop, their bodies covered in intense flames. They were literally burning, yet they continued working as if nothing was wrong. Gentoku looked at Sandrone and revealed that he had met Baryon. Sandrone quickly understood what he meant. She then handed over the information she had gathered from the beauty salon. It contained the lady's concerns, interests, beauty trends, and anything else she thought could be useful. Gentoku opened the document and noticed a red stain on it. He almost asked about it. Yelan instead asked if anything strange had happened to Sandrone. Sandrone assured her that she was fine and had handled everything without a problem. She also made it clear that the blood was not hers. Gentoku wanted to ask what exactly she had dealt with, but he decided it was better not to know. For now, he only swore that he would win this challenge for her, and raised his fist toward her. Sandrone said she knew he would and lightly bumped her fist against his. A few days later, Gentoku presented 3 products to Sandrone. She looked at them with curiosity and asked if they were really beauty products. She had not expected him to create them so quickly. Gentoku could not tell her that he had simply copied beauty tools from his old world. Instead, he admitted that the products might not match the summer theme. Sandrone did not care about that. She immediately asked him to explain what each tool did. Gentoku first introduced the hair iron. The prototype looked like a wooden clamp. Thin metal plates were attached to the inside of both sides so they could press against each other. He explained that it was a magical tool that heated hair while holding it in place. Sandrone was surprised by the idea of heating hair and wondered if it was safe. Gentoku said it should be fine in theory. He apologized in advance in case the user's hair turned into an afro. Sandrone became both confused and worried after hearing the unfamiliar word. There was only one way to find out how the tool worked. She asked where Yelan was. Gentoku explained that Yelan was resting upstairs after staying awake all night. Sandrone then ordered Richter to bring Yelan downstairs. Soon after, Yelan appeared in Richter's arms looking half asleep. Her hair was messy and full of tangles from sleeping. She asked Sandrone what had happened. She complained that her energy had dropped to 0. Richter asked everyone to let her go back to sleep. Sandrone spoke softly as she moved her face closer to Yelan's. She explained that she needed help with her hair. The moment Yelan heard that, she woke up completely and eagerly agreed. Gentoku felt nervous. Sandrone then told him to go ahead and use the magic tool. After some time, Yelan's hair became smooth and straight. Even Sandrone was amazed by how beautiful it looked. Gentoku said that a woman's hair was very important to her. He then asked Sandrone what she thought of the magic tool. Sandrone said that the hair iron alone was not enough and asked him to show the others. Gentoku then presented a mist generator. It was a box-shaped container with a fan on top. He explained that they only needed to pour water and oil into the tank, add magic, and switch it on. The fan quickly spun and a pleasant scent spread throughout the room. He explained that the propeller scattered the fragrance into the air and asked if everyone found it relaxing. Sandrone replied that it was too weak to be called a beauty tool. Gentoku explained that it depended on how it was used. If the propeller was adjusted, the air could blow directly onto a person's face. He added that herbs could also be placed inside the tank so their beneficial ingredients would become mist and cover the user's face. He then realized that ice could be added as well, allowing them to market it as a summer product. Without any hesitation, Sandrone asked how much it would cost. Gentoku reminded her that she was the one selling it, so the price was entirely her decision. Sandrone became excited. She thought the two magic tools were perfect beauty products that could help people relax and improve their appearance. She found them wonderful and immediately decided to promote them as new products for the summer season. Just then, she noticed the third item on Gentoku's desk and asked what it was. Gentoku hesitated before saying it was a moisturizing cream. He had created it after taking inspiration from a rival company. It contained beeswax, plant oils, and herbs that were good for the skin. He explained that it helped protect the skin from drying out after washing. Sandrone found it appealing and wanted to try it at once. However, Gentoku quickly pulled it away and apologized. He said he could not let her have it. Sandrone wondered why. Gentoku admitted he did not know the reason himself. He had tested the cream and confirmed that it worked well as a moisturizer. Still, something about it felt wrong. His instincts kept telling him to abandon the project. To his surprise, Sandrone agreed to forget about it. Gentoku was stunned. He had expected her to take it by force. Sandrone respected him as a craftsman. She had seen his inventions with her own eyes and understood his talent better than most. Even if he could not explain his concerns, she trusted his judgment. If his instincts told him something was wrong, then that was enough for her. Gentoku smiled and accepted her answer. He then handed over the specification sheets for the hair iron and mist sprayer. Sandrone asked Richter to take over from there. The two men discussed the details of the project while she took another look at the new magic tools. She felt grateful to Gentoku for giving her such a powerful advantage. Gentoku grinned and cheered her on. He said the only thing left was to wait for the final battle. Sandrone agreed as she left the workshop with Richter. She was looking forward to the big day as well. After they left, Gentoku let out a sigh of relief and returned to his work table. He could not believe how excited he had become. He had acted like a child. Then he remembered Yelan, who was still asleep on the floor. He checked on her, but she was sleeping too deeply to respond. Deciding not to wake her, he gently carried her to bed. The moment he left the room, someone quietly entered the workshop. The stranger's eyes immediately fell on the ointment and its specification sheet resting on the table. Later, when Gentoku came back downstairs to clean up, he found the table completely empty. The moisturizing cream and the papers were gone. He looked around in confusion, wondering where the cream had disappeared to. Outside the workshop, Baryon walked away with a smile on his face. The moisturizing cream rested in his hand. Soon after, crowds of customers poured into Alexandrite Trading's headquarters. Most of them came to ask about renting fridges with ice makers. Richter still could not believe it. The matches and the fridges with ice makers remained extremely popular. Sandrone was glad she had prepared a huge amount of stock. She quickly said they needed to arrange the new products as soon as possible. Richter wondered if she was asking for more production. Partly she was, but she also planned to give bonuses to all the employees. The reward would be equal to a full year's pay. Richter was stunned by the announcement. Still, after thinking about their sales, he realized there was nothing strange about it. Their business was doing so well that giving such rewards would not cause any problems. Sandrone then walked to the window and looked outside. She thought about how her company had grown at an amazing speed, but she knew none of it would have been possible without the employees who worked for her. Because of that, she wanted to show her appreciation in the best way she could. Richter smiled as he watched his master's back. At the same time, Sandrone remembered that she still needed to recalculate Gentoku's bonus. After the company finished work for the day, Sandrone appeared and thanked everyone for their hard work. She told them she had prepared a special bonus for all of them. Everyone became excited and started thinking about how they would spend it. Some of them were parents, so they already knew the bonus would go to their children. They thanked Sandrone for everything she had done. Because of her, they had been able to eat full meals every day. Sandrone felt happy when she heard those words. At that moment, an old woman called out to her. Her name was Sally, and standing behind her was a young man named Tanari. Sally told Sandrone to leave the remaining work to them. Tanari tried to slip away and do some cleaning, but his grandmother stopped him and told him to help with the accounting instead. Tanari disliked the idea because he was terrible at math. Sally refused to listen to any more complaints from him. Seeing the two argue, Sandrone laughed. Not long after her engagement had been broken off, Sandrone had been thrown out of her family, the House Iolite, a noble house led by a count. Her own father had shouted at her and driven her away. At that time, she believed she would have to face everything alone. She was shocked when 3 loyal servants chose to follow her. The first was Sally, the head maid. The second was Richter, her bodyguard. The third was Tanari, Sally's grandson and a butler in training. The moment Sandrone was exiled, all 3 of them quit their positions in the count's household and left with her. With their help, Sandrone founded the Alexandrite Trading Company. In the beginning, the company struggled badly. She could not afford to pay proper wages, so she hired people from poor families who were willing to work for very little money. Every time she handed out their pay, she apologized for how little she could give them. Even so, none of the workers complained. They knew that if Sandrone had not hired them, they and their families might have starved. Instead of blaming her, they promised to work harder. They asked her to grow the company and raise their wages someday. Sandrone took those words to heart and told them to wait for that day. Through blood, sweat, and tears, she slowly built the company. No matter how difficult things became, there were always people by her side, supporting her. And yet she let her emotions take control and gambled away everything she had built over a petty wager. Joan tried to excuse herself. Sally pointed out with concern that she had been working too hard lately creating new products again. She reminded her that if things ever became too difficult to handle alone, she could always turn to them for support. The others quickly agreed and assured her that they would stand by her side. Feeling guilty, Sandrone thanked them. As they walked back home, Sandrone jokingly called her Merchant Guild employees a mischievous bunch. Suddenly, Baryon stepped in front of them and stopped them in their tracks. Sandrone and her group paused for a moment before continuing on their way. Baryon asked her to wait, explaining that he had only come to check on her a week before their match. His words made Sandrone stiffen. She turned and shot him a cold glare. Seeing her reaction, Baryon guessed that she had not told her employees about the agreement. He then revealed that their two companies were competing to see who could earn better sales from their new summer products. The losing company would become a subsidiary of the winner. Sandrone's employees were shocked. They had never heard about such a deal and immediately looked to Sandrone for answers. She remained silent. Baryon stepped closer and told her not to worry. He claimed that he had been considering canceling the entire competition. He even said that he had prepared an apology for backing out of their agreement. With a snap of his fingers, several of his employees appeared. Baryon explained that he had been thinking about improving the working conditions in Sandrone's company. Sandrone asked what he meant. Baryon responded by criticizing her employees. He described them as people who had left their jobs in a count's household and commoners from poor backgrounds who lacked education and refinement. He claimed that managing such workers must have been difficult for her. He then suggested replacing them with talented employees from his own company. According to him, there was no reason for his future second wife to work herself to exhaustion. Sandrone silently burned with anger and was about to tell him to stop fooling around. Before she could speak, her employees rushed forward and surrounded Baryon with angry looks. The black-haired employee said he could no longer stay quiet after hearing the nonsense that came out of Baryon's mouth. He also questioned why Sandrone had hidden the match from them and kept them in the dark. The others quickly joined in. They reminded her that they cared for her just as much as she cared for them. They declared that it was time for them to stand and fight together. Sandrone lowered her head and admitted that she had been wrong. She blamed herself for dragging them into her personal problem. Then she looked at Baryon and his trading company, the people who had made fools of both her and her employees. She no longer intended to face him as Sandrone. She would crush him as the guildmaster of the Alexandrite Trading Company. She declared that they would put their pride on the line and win this match. Baryon could not help but smile. Soon after, an angry Yelan rushed into Gentoku's workshop and complained about how much Sandrone had been working lately. She explained that Sandrone had been busy day and night preparing for the match, while still handling all of her usual duties. Yelan wanted to be angry at her, but she also felt amazed. The older sister she admired had been working like a true professional. Even so, she could not stop worrying about Sandrone's health. Gentoku wondered why Sandrone had suddenly started pushing herself so hard. Yelan said it was all because of Baryon. That arrogant man had spoken badly about Sandrone's employees, which made her even more determined to prove herself. Gentoku was glad to hear that Sandrone had become so motivated. He thought that a boss who fought for her employees was someone special. He wondered if his words from before had finally reached her. Yelan agreed and stood up. Still, Gentoku told her to keep a close watch on Sandrone in case she collapsed from working too much. Yelan said she would go check on her, and Gentoku urged her to hurry. After Yelan left, Gentoku still could not find the moisturizing cream. He had made it for the competition, and the result had turned out well. Even so, he could not shake the uneasy feeling he had about it. In the end, he decided there was no point worrying about it any longer. It was time for him to get back to work. Suddenly, someone knocked on the front door. Gentoku quickly went to see who it was. When he opened it, Baryon was standing there, smiling. Gentoku became serious and asked why he had come. Baryon was surprised by his rude attitude toward a noble. He walked inside anyway and held a handkerchief over his nose, acting like the workshop was dirty. He chose to ignore Gentoku's behavior since they were both magical engineers. He also did not expect Gentoku's workshop to be so small. Gentoku asked what he wanted and said that a place like his was too dirty for someone like Baryon. Baryon replied that he did not plan to stay long. He then demanded that Gentoku work for him instead of Sandrone. This made Gentoku very angry. Baryon already knew that Gentoku created the matches and the ice maker refrigerator. He believed someone like Sandrone could not have made them. He was impressed by the magic designs inside the tools. He offered to pay double if Gentoku joined his company. Gentoku called the offer generous. Baryon insisted that Gentoku was worth it. Then he brought up the moisturizing cream, which shocked Gentoku. Gentoku thought Baryon had stolen the idea and its details. Baryon laughed at his reaction and said the cream was his company's new product. He told Gentoku to prove that it was stolen. Gentoku became even more frustrated. Baryon declared that Sandrone would suffer a total loss against him. Two thug-like men appeared behind Baryon. He told Gentoku not to stay with a sinking company and instead join his own company. Gentoku was speechless. Baryon then warned him to agree quietly or he would be hurt badly. Gentoku was now facing men with blades in their hands. If he fought back, he knew he would die. When he thought about it, the only reason he had survived in that world was because of Sandrone. If he backed down now, he would not be able to call himself a man. He took a fighting stance and said he would face them all. The thugs tried to attack him, but three girls suddenly rushed in and defeated them in an instant. The thugs were thrown out through the window. Gentoku was surprised and asked why they came. Rosso said they came to hang out, but they noticed strange men bothering him, so they dealt with them. Baryon was pinned down by Ao when he finally realized who the girls were. He did not expect to see Rosso of the red, Blanche of the white, and Ao the blue. Ao threatened him with a blade and told him not to use that name or she would kill him. Baryon shrieked like a scaredy cat. Rosso saw that he was in trouble and Gentoku agreed. The girls understood the situation. Rosso then became angry and said that a magical engineer like Gentoku should not have to fight. Blanche and Ao nodded. Rosso then started cracking her fists, saying her group would take over. Soon after, Sandrone and Richter visited Gentoku's workshop and saw him surrounded and protected by the girls. Sandrone had heard what had just happened. She said poaching was not unusual, but she did not expect Baryon to use such harsh methods. Gentoku admitted that he had panicked. Rosso reassured everyone to relax and said they would protect him now. Sandrone and Richter were surprised to see the girls. Earlier, one of the thugs had woken up and tried to attack the girls. Gentoku tried to warn Ao, but she already noticed the danger. She kicked the thug without even looking while still holding Baryon pinned to the ground. She told Gentoku that everything was fine. She also said it had been a long time since anyone had tried to stand up to them. She looked at the men with a strong predator-like stare. Blanche agreed with her. Rosso found the situation exciting and drew her sword. The girls challenged the men to try something. Gentoku quickly told the men to run before his shop got destroyed. Baryon and his group escaped at the last moment. After that, Gentoku realized he could not let his guard down. Rosso, Blanche, and Ao agreed to stay and act as his bodyguards for a while. Gentoku knew this would cost money, so he asked them how much they wanted. Rosso said she did not need money and only wanted more camping gear. Gentoku agreed without any issue and they made a deal. Gentoku explained everything to Sandrone and Richter. He noticed their reactions and asked what was wrong. Sandrone called the situation outrageous. Richter reminded Gentoku that among adventurers there were 7 famous ones known as the 7 Rainbow Adventurers. Rosso was known as the Blazing Flame's Fierce Sword, Blanche as the Holy Maiden of Pure White, and Ao as the Flowing Waters Ninja. All members of the Crimson Blood Camellia were part of these 7 Rainbow Adventurers. Richter said that only royalty would normally hire bodyguards like them, and not even all 3 together. Gentoku then looked at Rosso. Rosso simply laughed and treated everyone in the room as friends. Sandrone could not help but sigh. For now, she decided to treat this as the best possible mark on their record. She wanted to discuss the real reason for their visit. She handed him a newspaper showing an article about Peridot Trading launching a moisturizing cream to use with their sunscreen. Gentoku was shocked. Sandrone said she did not expect them to be developing the same product. Gentoku lowered his head and said it was the same moisturizing cream he had completed recently, which was missing along with its specification sheet. Sandrone immediately became angry and struck him, telling him to report things like that quickly. The girls realized how frightening Sandrone was. Gentoku apologized. He then explained that Baryon had brought up the product and there was no doubt that he had stolen it. Sandrone said theft should have been the first suspicion when an item disappeared without reason. Gentoku realized his mistake and apologized again. Sandrone sighed and assumed their opponent was serious as well. They could not stop the launch of the stolen product, so she suggested giving up on stopping it. Richter then opened a case on the table. Sandrone said they had their own strong tools that would not lose. Inside were finished versions of a mist sprayer and a hair iron with improved designs. Gentoku was impressed. The girls asked what the items were and found them cute. Sandrone said they were beauty magic tools and suggested they try them. Blanche became serious and approached Sandrone saying she was very careful with beauty products. Sandrone accepted the challenge. Rosso examined the mist sprayer and asked how it worked. Sandrone explained that they should fill the glass orb with water infused with medicinal herbs and then flip the switch. A scented mist sprayed toward the girls' faces. Even Gentoku was impressed by the final version. Sandrone also explained that they would sell herbal-infused water with it. It would help prevent dryness, rough skin, freckles, and other skin concerns. She then asked Gentoku to bring ice. Ice cubes were added to the glass orb. The girls were speechless as the cold mist touched their faces. Rosso reacted with surprise at how refreshing it felt. Sandrone said it cooled skin heated by the summer sun while medicinal ingredients help prevent skin problems. She explained that this was her company's new summer beauty tool. Blanche calmly approached Sandrone and took her hand, asking about the price. Gentoku saw this as approval from a professional. Sandrone decided to give the tools as gifts since the girls were guarding Gentoku. The girls were happy. Sandrone then turned to Gentoku and asked how the final product quality was. Gentoku said the finished items looked more beautiful, and the quality was much better than before. He also said the girls were clearly enjoying using them. He considered it a big success. Sandrone said that seeing this was the highest praise she could receive. Blanche then excitedly asked Sandrone how to use the hair iron. Sandrone walked over to the girls and used Richter's hair as a test. While they were playing with Richter's hair, Gentoku asked if experts were consulted for products made with medicinal herbs. Sandrone said they had specialists supervising the process. She also explained that her company did not cut corners when it came to inspections. However, she added that mixing helpful herbs was something even amateurs did, and even trading companies use similar methods. Gentoku said he understood. He then asked when her next face-to-face meeting with Baryon would happen. Sandrone said it would take place 3 days after the competition started and that the final sales results would be announced then. Gentoku then asked to attend as well, saying he had something he needed to confirm about the stolen moisturizing cream.